Chapter 734, 290 spears cut through the wind and waves. Holding a pen to test the edge under three, seeing no sign of Bai Lian, Dean Jian grew impatient and decided to return to Chang'an district with Jian Zhe, heading straight to Shanghai apartment to wait for Bai Lian. After all, the guzheng, the long spear, the Liang-style calligraphy. Dean Jian reflected on the past events. Even the old Mr. Chen did not wait any longer. Together, the two of them exited the main entrance. Outside, the Jian family had been on stakeout for Dean Jian since yesterday, but when Dean Jian came by yesterday, surrounded by a swarm of security guards and reporters, they were kept beyond the security line, unable to speak to Dean Jian for the entire day. They had come early in the morning today to stake out again. Upon catching sight of Dean Jian from afar, Jian Zhonghai hurried excitedly in that direction. Yet he was still stopped by the security on site. "Old sir, please do not cross the security line." "That is my brother." Jian Zhonghai gazed in the direction of Jian Zhongyo, his voice rising. "Zhongyo, Zhongyo." Dean Jian bent down and got into the car. Without looking back, the security guards, with forced smiles, blocked the other members of the Jian family. "There are others who claim to be the long-lost sons and daughters of Dean Jian, sir. Please do not make it difficult for us." Jian Zhonghai was a figure of some standing in Beijing, and this was the first time he had been treated with such passive aggressiveness. His aged face struggled to remain composed. Beside him, an elderly member of the Jian family squinted at another silhouette entering the car and was slightly stunned. "Old master, look, isn't that young Master Jian Zhe getting on the car?" "Today is Monday. The physics department has its routine meeting in the afternoon." Dean Huang sat at the front with his hands resting on the table, palms together, surveying the room. "Zhua, what about your project?" His gaze settled on Zhua Jinhua. Dean Huang supervised many students, but had only a few direct disciples. Some were assisting at Academician Moss Research Institute. Zhua Jinhua was a quasi-free-range doctoral student. Missing an opportunity in this year's mathematical modeling competition, his performance fell short, and he had not yet been promoted to a professional title. Nor had he been promoted to associate professor. Bai Lian was his future junior sister, and without even thinking, Dean Huang knew how brilliant the path ahead for Bai Lian and her line would be. He had recently heard that Bai Lian and Ning Xiao had been in Academician Moss lab. During this period, Sun Fu let Bai Lian and the others leave the lab, and Dean Huang did not try to persuade Sun Fu otherwise. He was willing to give Zhua Jinhua a chance. Chapter 735, 290 spears tear through the wind and waves. Holding a pen to test the blade under 4, Bai Lian pressed the button on her phone to return a call to Dean Huang. "I haven't decided which lab specifically," said Dean Huang, who wasn't in a rush. "Why don't you directly go to the teacher's lab? He would definitely like that." Dean Huang understood his mentor. Ever since Jiang he was 6 years old, Academician Ma had wanted to lure him into the lab. "It's not the time yet," Bai Lian replied. Dean Huang thought that made sense. "Then I'll make a list for you tonight. You can take a look and find one that you think is suitable." He hoped that this time he could find a research center with a better atmosphere for Bai Lian. After hanging up, Bai Lian went downstairs. Ming Dongheng was waiting for her downstairs, and once he confirmed that Bai Lian was going to the restaurant in Cultural Square, he drove straight there. The hotel near Cultural Square was where Zhou Wennan and Qiu Xuezheng were, and with Zhou Wennan being the vice president of the Beijing Calligraphy Association and quite familiar with Bai Lian, he always took special care of the Shangcheng Calligraphy Association. As soon as Bai Lian got out of the car, she felt that someone was watching her, secretly taking pictures. But because Ming Dongheng was following her, no one dared to approach. This feeling, after the welcome meeting as well, made her raise an eyebrow. Meanwhile, the Dong family. Old Master Dong didn't go out today and was worried about the exhibition. After Dong Xiaobai and Dong Chuan returned, he got up and asked, "The Kai family didn't pull any tricks, did they?" "Well," Dong Xiaobai snapped back to reality, his expression strange, "they moved all the cameras to focus on Alien." "What?" Old Master Dong put his teacup down with a smack, his face darkening. "I knew they were up to no good." "Dad, don't worry just yet," said Dong Xiaobai with a smile. "We've actually benefited from this misfortune. Yining's niece, her calligraphy is even better than Wangshuan's." "Her?" Old Master Dong was also stunned. "She's a student at Jiang University and she knows calligraphy too?" "Yeah," Dong Xiaobai said softly. "Even better than Su Yajun." As Su Yejun was considered a benchmark among female practitioners in the industry, old Master Dong almost gasped. Why have I never heard her name? Who is her mentor? Dong Chuan, who was casually listening to their conversation, opened WeChat intending to ask Ran Wanxian but then noticed a push notification for a short video. It clearly read, Ink and Sea Calligraphy Exchange, by Lian. He paused for a moment, then clicked on it. Bai Lian had been a sensation on the internet before. Once the official live stream of the Ink and Sea event was released, many netizens recognized her. Chapter 736, 291 Godlike by Jian_1 Top comment in the comments section. Snack-eating citizen Little Wang, Bai Lian, member of Xueqi Calligraphy Association Calligraphy Level, has never participated in grading exams awards 1, first prize in the 9th Lanting Award. Someone replied below. Most people probably have never heard of the Lanting Award. Let me educate everyone. The Lanting Award occurs once every 3 years, with groupings, and getting a third-place award allows entry into the National Calligraphy Association. There are typically 3 first-place awards and 6 second-place awards. However, last year, which was the 9th Lanting Award, there was only 1 first-place award. The usual seeded contestants from the Calligraphy Association, Su Yejun and Xie Yuan, ended up with second-place awards, and those previously in the running for second place were moved to third place. For this reason, the 9th Lanting Awards Youth Prize became the one with the highest gold content in history. That first-place winner with no competitors is our Bai Lian, Flower. Hold on, out of curiosity, I looked it up, and has anyone noticed the name Bai Lian used seems familiar? Image? Bai Jian? Is she also a fan of Yen Lu and the Jian God? How is that possible? The Lanting Award was more than 2 months earlier than gambling with liquor. Could it be a coincidence? Speaking of which, our Zhang University app also has a big-name god with the same name. The netizens began to argue over Bai Lian's name used at the Lanting Award, but Dong Chuan didn't continue reading. He wasn't well-versed in the entertainment industry. Instead, he turned to the elder Mr. Dong. Grandpa, Bai Lian was last year's first prize winner of the Lanting Award. The two who were discussing Bai Lian's calligraphy suddenly fell silent. The Dong family had been quite excited when they first heard that Ran Wanxian was studying art, practicing the Liang style. To them, the Liang style was not just the Liang style. It was also a foot in the door. Mastering the Liang style and doing it well is a different concept from winning the Lanting Award. This year's Pen and Ink Vast Ocean 4 Nations Exchange, due to Bai Lian's participation, was frighteningly popular. Vice Chairman Liang of the Cultural Bureau hadn't even considered how to increase the buzz. By afternoon, a throng of tourists had surged into the venue. People continued to come and go until the evening. What on earth is going on? Vice Chairman Liang was somewhat perplexed as he ordered stepped-up arrangements, emergency meetings, and intensified promotion of the cultural philosophy for the event. The publicity department quickly traced the source of the whole affair. Vice Chairman, take a look at these videos. After watching the netizens' edits and checking the online popularity, Vice Chairman Liang asked, is all this because of her? Of course, Zhang University's top entrance exam star this year, the young person from the publicity department had previously scrolled past Bai Lian's long post. Vice Chairman, with her here, I believe this year's Pen and Ink Vast Ocean won't lack popularity. Vice Chairman Liang looked down at the list. He felt that the publicity department's statement sounded familiar. Thinking about it more carefully, it seemed that last week, when Dean Jian received the new list, he had also said something similar? At a restaurant near Cultural Square, Qiu Xueqi and Zhou Wennan had drunk quite a bit. Qiu Xueqi lived nearby. He walked with his hands clasped behind his back, alongside Zhou Wennan, heading back. Deputy Zhou, you live in Chang'an District. Could you go back with Bai Lian? Zhou Wennan played a crucial role in the success of the Xueqi Calligraphy Association to date. No need, my younger brother will come to pick me up. Zhou Wennan smiled and shook his head. Well then, I'll submit another application for the Xueqi Calligraphy Association. How many applications did you receive today? 986, just today, Qiu Xueqi marveled, and this was only the first day. In Jiangjing, they hadn't felt it yet, but as reported by the Xueqi Calligraphy Association, by this afternoon, the number of people strolling on Wallow Street had exploded, with many out-of-town visitors queuing up at the Calligraphy Association to experience traditional culture. The Xueqi Calligraphy Association was not large, and the Cultural Bureau had sent an additional 20 people to help, already starting to limit the flow of visitors. This was the era of information explosion through viral content. More extravagant than Xueqi had imagined. Bai Lian stood by the roadside, waiting to see Zhou Wennan off. From behind, Ming Dongheng silently handed her a black cape. There was no snow these past days, but the temperature in Zhongjing remained very low. Xueqi rubbed his hands together, blowing out clouds of white breath, still discussing the future direction of the Shangqing Calligraphy Association with Zhou Wennan. Bai Lian had good physical resilience and wasn't as susceptible to the cold as others. She casually draped the black cape over her shoulders. It wasn't made by Ji Hung, with black velvet fabric, a Chinese-style design, broad sleeves on the sides, and thick white fur sewn at the cuffs and collar. Aside from a lifelike red rose on the left side of the collar, there were no other decorations. Simple and elegant. Zhou Wennan's car slowly approached, the speed lowered, and the person in the driver's seat got out, greeting Xueqi. His gaze shifted to Bai Lian standing nearby. Bai Lian? Professor Zhou? Bai Lian also felt surprised that Zhou Wenqing was actually Zhou Wennan's brother. Wenqing, you know each other? Zhou Wennan pulled out a cigarette and handed it to Xueqi. Then looking at the two, he also realized, right, you are both from Jiang University. After saying that, he continued to discuss today's matter with Xueqi. Zhou Wenqing didn't know much about calligraphy art, so he talked to Bai Lian about the classes she missed at the Tongfeng group today and about the next literature report. Bai Lian lowered her head, meticulously straightened her cloak sleeve, listened to him finish, then asked, Professor Zhou, how many members are in your lab? Ning Xiao often went to help Zhou Wenqing, and Bai Lian knew Zhou Wenqing was also working on projects at the moment. The Zhou family studied a variety of fields, with some in politics, some researching literature, and some engaged in scientific research. Zhou Wenqing lacked a foundation at Jiang University. For members, Ning Xiao sometimes comes over to help them, but Ning Xiao is just organizing data. The entire mentor group was in a state of limbo. Zhou Wennan finished chatting with Xueqi before getting into the car and leaving. Zhou Wenqing in the car. Zhou Wennan sat in the passenger seat, and after a few words about Bai Lian and the Calligraphy Association, he remembered the main issue. Dad went to Shangqing to inquire for you, but so far there's no news. Zhou Wenqing's hand rested on the steering wheel. No worries, just keep an eye out for me. For the application you submitted, I remember Jiang University has its allocations, right? Zhou Wennan asked. Green light, Zhou Wenqing started the car. The price is high, output even lower, the quotas are limited each year, all allocated to key projects. The portion allocated to my lab was used up by June this year. It couldn't be helped. This was a metal scarce across the entire world. Zhou Wenqing's main research focus was also this, and with the experiment halted, he had accepted the task of guiding new students assigned by the Physics Institute, to earn a bit of performance pay to support the lab. Zhongjing University. Girls' Dormitory 407. After returning, Bai Lian saw Kong Wei sitting at her spot browsing her phone, with Yu Min's hand on her chair, watching along. And as soon as Bai Lian came back, both their gazes turned towards her, without a word. Bai Lian paused, first looking towards Sun Qian, who lifted her head from the desk, indicating she was clueless. Fine. Bai Lian closed the door of the dormitory behind her, sat down calmly in her chair, set up her computer, and leisurely logged into WeChat to type out a message for Ning Xiao to send the data over. She still had to help Ning Xiao with the graphs. Dean Huang's message also popped up at that time. A list of academic labs with good atmospheres that he had screened. Dean Huang. Choose one. Bai Lian's fingertips rested on the mouse, zoomed in for a glance, and didn't see any familiar names before replying, frowny face. Professor Zhou also has projects. Can we join his lab? Chapter 737. 292. Are you going back to bomb Jiangjing? Second update. _1 Bai Lian was still examining the atomic arrangements at various temperature points in the simulation process when 5 bar graphs unfolded. She plotted the MSD versus time curve, fitted a straight line, and differentiated a ratio to replace the slope, her brows and eyes still. Why do you ask? You two use the same screen name. Do you know each other? Kong Wei asked earnestly, glancing at Bai Lian's computer. At a glance, she saw the bar graphs, the NPT system above with a simulation time of 195 ps written below, followed by the interfacial energy. Her eyes blurred from gazing too hard, and she quickly averted her gaze. Bai Lian tilted her head slightly and said unhurriedly, Sort of. Kong Wei had simply blurted out the question on a whim. Not expecting to receive such an answer, and realizing she had interrupted Bai Lian's research, she hopped back to her own desk. She exchanged glances with Yu Simin. Sort of, what does that mean? She asked in all sincerity. Sort of know each other? Yu Simin looked at her with frustration. You should have asked whether it's a boy or girl, how old they are this year. Tuesday. Early morning. Bai Lian finally returned to the Tongfeng class for lessons. Having taken a week off, it had been a long while since the people in the Tongfeng class had laid eyes on her. It was rare for anyone at Jiang University to take time off, let alone an entire week. Gao Yuan and others sat in the middle, and as soon as Bai Lian entered, many eyes fell on her. I heard they had a conflict with Professor Sun's lab members, Wang Shi murmured next to a male student. So Professor Sun filed a report to send them away. By the way, Gao Xiao, do you know which lab they're going to be assigned to? Without looking up, Gao Yuan said indifferently, it should be Professor Zhou's lab. Professor Zhou? Hearing this, Wang Shi lowered his head. Although Zhou Wenqing was their advisor, everyone in their group came from some background and knew. If a professor had key projects, the school would not assign them to lead freshmen. The only reason Zhou Wenqing was assigned to teach them was that he didn't have any key projects on hand. Labs like that are always of little value. At least our group has Gao Yuan, who goes straight into Dr. Gao's lab. The male student beside Wang Shi sighed again. Wang Shi had always believed his choice was correct. He felt even more certain that leaving Ding Wenyang's group for Gao Yuan's had been a wise move. Compared to them, what seemed even more bizarre was Zhou Wenqing, who, after 4 hours of lecture that morning, waited for Bai Lian at the door. Bai Lian, carrying her canvas bag, handed her card to Tang Ming, asking him to wait for her in the canteen. Almost all the other students had left, and she remained with Zhou Wenqing in the hallway. By student, you didn't tell Dean Huang you were going to another group? Zhou Wenqing tapped his fingers on the teaching plan he was holding, speaking earnestly. My lab is quite small, with only 4 members, and we don't have a full range of tools. The members had also been lackadaisical lately. Zhou Wenqing felt he couldn't be much help to Bai Lian and the others. It's fine, Bai Lian said after he finished, lifting her chin slightly, her tone unhurried. You just need to not refuse us. Zhou Wenqing had prepared many arguments to tell her that choosing a good lab was important to them. But looking at Bai Lian's expression now, he said helplessly, I want refuse, but my lab's research topic is quite vague, and most of the 4 members are just coasting through for a degree. I'm afraid it'll impact you. Probably only Zhou Wenqing could admit the mediocre quality of his students. He stood there, watching Bai Lian's retreating figure. He couldn't help but pull out his phone and call his assistant. Help me apply for more palladium with the higher-ups. Zhou Wenqing decided to make an effort. Having newcomers was an excuse. Zhou Wenqing's lab was in the experimental center. Bai Lian and the others headed there straight after lunch. His lab wasn't as large as Sun Fuss, consisting of just one room, where 3 students chatted at the central table. When new students entered, the only female student stood up quickly, tidying her desk. Juniors, welcome. I'm Hu Yu, and this is the senior brother Lu, and the second senior brother. Hu Yu, with her short hair and tall figure, was straightforward and efficient. She seemed like the kind of student Zhou Wenqing would take on. Sister Hu, Brother Lu, Brother Chu. Ding Wenyang and the others greeted obediently. Junior brothers and sisters, add me on WeChat first. Hu Yu took out her phone for them to scan the QR code. After scanning, she showed them around to the lab equipment. The lab being quite small, one could see everything at a glance. The lab operation manuals are all here. Take a look. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me or the senior brother. Tang Ming took a look around and asked Hu Yu. Sister Hu, so what tasks do we have today? About that, Hu Yu exchanged a look with the senior brother. Our teacher's research focus is on superconductors, but we don't have a lot of experimental equipment right now, so our lab isn't busy. You can just familiarize yourselves with the topics. There's no need to help us. If you have any questions, just ask. The new lab was inherently small, and with Bai Lian and the others, it became lively. Tang Ming and Ding Wenyang excitedly studied the machinery. Whenever they encountered something they didn't understand, Hu Yu and the 2 seniors would patiently explain it to them. Bai Lian and Ning Xiao found a spot and sat down to study Ning Xiao's plasma decomposition. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Hu Yu and a few others were going to attend an academic lecture. Hu Yu, sitting across from Bai Lian, rested her chin on the table and asked, "Do you guys have any favorite desserts? I'll bring a few extra for you during the tea break." The tea breaks at Jiang University are famous after all. The academic event wasn't exactly in Hu Yu's field, but the school required attendance, and they were quite willing to go, not so much for the conference, but for the delicious tea break. Upon hearing this, Tang Ming immediately looked up, Taro Xiaobei. A little after 4 o'clock. Hu Yu returned with Senior Lu and a few others, each holding a paper bag. They placed the fruits and cakes on the long table in the middle and invited the seniors and juniors in the lab to enjoy the afternoon tea. Taro Xiaobei, mousse cake, chocolate cookies. "We have it all here, take whatever you fancy, juniors." Bai Lian was sitting in her spot, having already completed the diagram for Ning Xiao. She was somewhat surprised to see the tea snacks Hu Yu and the others brought back, not expecting them to bring so many. "Thank you, senior brothers and sisters." Tang Ming put down the experimental equipment he was working with. Bai Lian also set aside what she was doing and leisurely took a strawberry, taking a bite. Chatting with Hu Yu, "Senior sister, did you say there was a shortage of lab equipment?" "Not exactly lab equipment," Hu Yu spoke to Bai Lian as it wasn't a secret. "Our teacher's research topic is superconductors, and there's a very important metal element in there, palladium. But the annual quota of palladium is limited, and after April, our experiments have hardly progressed." Palladium. Bai Lian finished off the rest of the strawberry. She pulled out a piece of paper from the table and leisurely wiped her hands, deep in thought. Friday afternoon. After hanging out in the lab for a few days, Tang Ming had learned how to operate various pieces of experimental equipment. Like Ning Xiao, he was quite interested in all this. Right now, Senior Lu was discussing previous experimental data with Ning Xiao and Tang Ming, and was not at all secretive. He patiently answered any questions they had. Bai Lian saw they were still busy researching, so she didn't wait for them and left the lab by herself. Downstairs at the research center, Jiang Fulai was waiting for her, seeing her come out in a fleece-lined slant-collared outfit, holding a cloak in her hand, too lazy to put it on herself. "Aren't you cold?" There was heating on in the car. He was just wearing a black sweater, which only made him look even cooler. His left hand resting on the steering wheel, his right hand touching the back of her hand. Good. Her hand was warmer than his. The words that were about to come out of his mouth vanished instantly. Chapter 738. 293 is so much like our ancestor. _1 Shanghai apartment style. After Bai Lian sent out a message, she casually took the wilted roses from the vase as Xiaowu and Mao Kuan arrived. Sun Chun didn't come? Bai Lian pulled out a chair to sit down, leaning back, the dry roses carelessly held in her hand as she idly fiddled with the stems. Xueqi showed her the recent business project update. She's at the new store in Shermen district. When Sun Chun first came to Zhongjing, she liked visiting Bai Lian's place quite often, adding various things to it. But in recent months, she hasn't shown much interest in coming to Shanghai apartment. She also frequented bars less often. Her preference shifted to visiting the business project and occasionally learning some traditional Chinese medicine from Henji Wei. A branch office in Shermen district had just opened, and since Xueqi and the rest were preoccupied, Sun Chun temporarily ceased her work in Yunshao district and lately had been spending most of her time in Shermen district, to the point that Xueqi hardly saw her. Mao Kuan had Xiaowu follow her, so there was no worry about her encountering any danger. Bai Lian perused the summary report that Xueqi had given her, most of which she could hardly understand, but she still got a general idea of the business' recent situation. The business project differentiated itself from other herbal medicine stores in that its major source of products, especially the solid foundation paste, was Xueqi. Following Xueqi's preemptive purchase of medicinal materials with 2 million last year, most farmers now cultivated medicinal herbs this year. Xueqi was the best place for herbal cultivation, and solid foundation paste was the business signature product. As long as it remained unaffected, even if Luo family tried to suppress it, they couldn't destroy the business in its infancy. After solidifying its position, Xueqi then launched acupuncture for myopia, without Lance's knowledge, instantly becoming a sensation online, even though such popularity was fleeting. But the successive day-end acupuncture for myopia check-in videos that continued to trend ensured ongoing attention. Following this, once the efficacy of the acupuncture for myopia was confirmed, there was no fear of being forgotten by the public. Of course, on top of this foundation, there was another vital factor. The endorser for solid foundation paste was Yen Lu. This was also a crucial factor in breaking into first-tier city markets from the lower-tier ones. How are the negotiations with traditional Chinese medicine university going? Bai Lian looked at Xueqi. Dr. Hen is discussing with the professors at the school. Xueqi sat opposite Bai Lian, his hand resting on the table. There aren't many doctors willing to intern with us, but some senior professors are very interested in Dr. Hen's acupuncture techniques. This wasn't surprising. After all, medical students preferred to intern at large hospitals, or at least authoritative institutions. The business had only been established for a bit over a year and lacked professional authority in the field. Bai Lian wasn't surprised. The two discussed some issues about the business, and then Bai Lian brought up the problem with the old bill. Have you thought about finding your biological parents? Xueqi's expression was exceptionally calm. It doesn't matter anymore. 103. Shen Qing came over early in the morning with groceries. The weekends were always bustling at Shanghai apartment, with Zhang Fulai watching Zhang He solve Olympiad math problems downstairs. Lance was playing Go with Pu Xiaohan. Jianzhe had an exam tomorrow, and Ji Hang had specially called him over for dinner. At the moment, he was helping in the kitchen. Chief Chen got off work early today, having just learned a few cooking tricks from Qi Yundai the previous week, and was showing off his skills in the kitchen. Shen Qing was examining the blender next to her, surrounded by a variety of fruits, researching how to make juice. When Bai Lian came down, Zhang Fulai was maintaining a cold expression towards Zhang He. Lance and Pu Xiaohan had moved their small table 2 meters away, to keep a distance from the two. Zhang He sat at the dining table, his feet 20 centimeters off the ground, his right hand holding a pen, and his left pressing down a test paper. Zhang Fulai sat beside him, his elbow on the table, slender fingertips holding a phone, his sharp eyes slightly askew, an answer that one knows with a mere glance. Standing beside Zhang He, Bai Lian looked down and saw that he was stuck on the last question about thought expansion in the Olympiad math paper. Zhang He was sensitive to numbers, having mastered elementary math many years ago, and was now tackling middle school Olympiad questions. Even though they were middle school problems, they held little challenge for Zhang Fulai. Asking him to explain middle school level thinking was no different than asking him, what's 1 plus 1? It wasn't just Zhang Fulai. Upon first glance at the question, Bai Lian also intuitively thought of the answer. Bai Lian spoke calmly, Zhang Xiaoniao, wait for your brother Zhang to come back and have him explain it to you. She turned around, leaving Zhang He in Zhang Fulai's care and headed to the kitchen to find Chief Chen. Chief Chen was, chop, slicing potatoes into thin strips. Miss Bai. He paused his knife work to greet her when he saw her entering. Bai Lian nodded slightly and reached out to help him wash the vegetables. Can I take another look at Zhou Jian's file from Shangqing? Source. Web novel. Chapter 739. 293 is so much like our ancestor. _2 The transaction records from Bakhtur Street have come through, listing Zhou Jian as one of the tradespeople. It's hard to account for transactions from over a decade ago, but because Zhou Jian frequently dealt with buyers, he remembers clearly that one of the buyers was Zhou Jian. Zhou Jian. It took Director Chen a while to recall who this person was. Zhou Jian, the man who nearly caused Su En to suffer brain death, Ran Qian's secretary. Zhou Jian's file is at the Shangqing branch, said Director Chen, who was also promoted straight to Jiangjing from Shangqing. A lot of people in Shangqing remembered his kindness. I'll ask them to find the file and scan it over tonight, and find a time for Sun Fei to take you directly to the system at the Yunshao branch. It's not advisable to send internal materials from Shangqing over carelessly. Gao family, study room. Gao Yi was talking to Mu Yujun. You haven't seen her yet? Mu Yujun placed the teacup beside him. She hasn't returned to the Mu family, let alone me, even Yining seldom sees her. Forget it, no need to bother. Gao Yi said no more and took the teacup, lowering his gaze to take a sip of tea. After she had left, Gao Yi turned to Gao Zhechen. You know that Professor Ma's laboratory is looking for an undergraduate, right? This could be a breakthrough for Gao Yuan. Dad, don't worry, I'm guiding my cousin in the core research, Gao Zhechen said, with his whole team now working for Gao Yuan. This year, both Liang Wuyu and Bai Lian are strong competitors. Which team are they in now? Zhou Wenqing's team. I checked. They are researching superconductors, But after 3 years, the project has made little progress, Gao Zhechen informed Gao Yi. Gao Yi slowly set down his teacup. No progress in 3 years. What are they doing with so much scientific research funding every year? Make them deliver results this year, or there's no point in continuing this project. Saturday. The National Graduate Student Entrance Examination begins. This year, Su Wanyao and Jian Jie are both participating in the big test. Jiangjing doesn't get much rain or snow, but the cold is particularly biting. All the lakes in Jiangjing are frozen. Today, Ji Hang and Director Chen are ice fishing at Jiayu Lake. Pu Xiaohan wants to check in at the ancient buildings of Jiangjing. Lian, will you join me? Just wear what you have. I'll take a few shots of your silhouette for my new concept, a collision of ancient and modern. Sister Lu hasn't returned to Jiangjing, otherwise, I could ask her too. Of course, Pu Xiaohan's first choice was always Bai Lian. Bai Lian was reading documents in the study room, and without giving it much thought, joined Pu Xiaohan. She has never refused people like Pu Xiaohan. Chapter 740. 293 is so much like our ancestor. _3 When Bai Zhongyu died, like Bai Li, he left no body behind. Lady Bai erected a cenotaph for him, so the grave was not large, and it was fenced off by people from the tourist area. Bai Lian followed behind Pu Xiaohan, looking at the cenotaph here. The previous group had just finished paying homage to Bai Zhongyu. There were many things stuffed in front of Bai Zongyi's tomb by young people, including short swords, toy guns, newspapers, as well as chocolates and lollipops. There was also a bunch of poppies, the Bai family's representative bouquet, parked to the side. After paying her respects, Pu Xiaohan saw that Bai Lian was still standing in front of the tomb. Thinking it was Bai Lian's first visit, she did not disturb her and spoke with the people managing the cemetery instead, asking how often they cleared the offerings. Bai Lian, holding a lit incense stick, looked at the numbers carved on the headstone before speaking. You see, in the end, Chen Yi and the others survived, and I am also doing quite well. Bai Lian took out her phone, which had a photo of Jiang Suyi's gravesite. After flipping to that photo and contemplating for a long time, she still did not display the picture. I saw the third princess, she's doing quite well too. Jiang Suyi was 2 years younger than Bai Zhongyu. When she was younger due to poor health, she was sent by Emperor Jiang to Bai Li to learn spear fighting for a while, and she had known Bai Zhongyu since childhood. However, after Bai Li died on the battlefield, and Bai Zhongyu went far away to Xiangqing, the two never saw each other again. The night before Jiang Suyi was sent off for a diplomatic marriage by Emperor Jiang, Bai Lian secretly climbed into Jiang Suyi's palace to ask her if she wanted to escape. She remembered how her father died trapped on the battlefield without reinforcements. She remembered how Bai Zhongyu gave up the pen to join the military and went to Xiangqing. She remembered how the third princess died on the plains, unable to wait for her brother to come back and pacify the grasslands. Only when Xiangqing could no longer hold out, and she was left alone in Xiangqing, could she understand Jiang Suyi's thoughts. Jiang Suyi did not leave. She had no choice, as it was an imperial command she could not defy. But it was also for the common people. She was Jiang Suyi, and she was also the third princess. When Chen Beixian arrived at Bai Zongyi's tomb, wearing a military coat and black leather ankle boots, carrying a bouquet of sunflowers, what she saw was just such a scene. The girl wrapped in a white cloak, holding a cell phone standing in front of Bai Zongyi's tomb. The way she lowered her eyes, she looked extremely similar to the only painting worshipped in the Chen family ancestral shrine. Chen Beixian felt a bit dazed. Chapter 741. 294. How much do you want? Is 100 Jin enough? Second update. _1 adopted daughter? Bai Lian raised an eyebrow. Why is there another one looking to adopt a daughter? Who is it? Bai Lian flicked the ash off her cigarette lazily and turned her head to look at the director of the institute. The director did not conceal the truth. The elder from the Chen family, you probably don't know him. He was sitting in the audience last time watching you, and he's also the old friend whom I mentioned I wanted to introduce to you. The Chen family? Bai Lian propped her hands behind her on the windowsill. Which Chen? Their Chen family, the director's voice lowered as he spoke, with a hint of wariness and a sigh. A family line that has been handed down for thousands of years. Their ancestor is General Chen Yi. Ah, Bai Lian bit on her cigarette, the smile on her face enigmatic. Chen Yi, huh? Her tone was so casual, as if she were talking about the Wangs next door. The director. Yes, General Chen Yi, the director slowly explained to Bai Lian. You should think this over carefully. It's not as simple as just writing a song. This is very important for you. Becoming the adopted daughter of Old Master Chen, without saying anything else, with that status, she could walk sideways in Zhongjing without any problems. That won't be necessary. Bai Lian shifted her gaze back inside, looking at the sunroom below, and spoke unhurriedly. I'm not afraid he'll dream about his ancestor coming after him at night. The last sentence was said quietly. The director didn't catch it. What did you say? I said, tell him to save it. Bai Lian stubbed out her cigarette and opened the window a bit wider, her smile nonchalant. Don't overthink it. Zhang Fulai's laboratory. He stood before a large screen, removing the black pen clipped to the lapel of his white lab coat, and used the tip of the pen to point at the engine simulation of the flight vehicle on the screen. The image showed the engine propelling an energy body that diffused in all directions. Standing there, his posture rigid, his eyes, under the glasses, were chilly, his eyelashes slightly lowered. Inside the conference room, all the team members and professors were silent, just quietly watching the big screen. After the presentation, he capped the pen and inside the conference room, most professors discussed the engine they had just seen. Some didn't catch the key points during the meeting and dared not ask Zhang Fulai. Only Hewen followed Zhang Fulai with his notebook in hand. Mr. Zhang, I had them send dinner to the break room just now. Zhang Fulai walked towards the laboratory, clipping the pen back onto his chest and smoothing out any wrinkles on his clothing. Regarding the turbulent chaos system I just mentioned, how much did you understand? I recorded it. Hewen pulled out his voice recorder. Zhang Fulai glanced at him, seemed about to say something, but in the end only acknowledged with a detached, and looked away. After returning to Zhongjing, he handed over the dark matter work to the person in charge. He had been involved with the Ma Institute in the research for the Mars rover, and to have a holiday over the New Year, he often stayed until late in the laboratory these days. Hewen silently touched his nose. He wasn't like Zhang Fulai, who could remember every word after hearing it once. Holding the recorder, he went to the external public break room, opened the cupboard to get his phone, and while eating his boxed meal, he sent a message to Bai Lian. Inside, Zhang Fulai was still analyzing data. Next to him, a team member with paper and pen listened and cautiously wrote down the issues mentioned by Zhang Fulai. The cell phone in his pocket lit up. He was the founder of the laboratory and, like an academician at the Ma Institute, could bring his cell phone into the lab. Eat. Just 2 words, not even a punctuation mark. Zhang Fulai stared at the 2 words for a long while, silent. Beside him, a team member's hand trembled slightly, risking a glance up at Zhang Fulai's indifferent profile, worried they hadn't just spouted some foolish theory. Then Zhang Fulai spoke up, putting away his pen. Let's stop here. After he finished, he put away his phone and returned to his break room. Inside, the base staff had already set up his meal. His dinner was the same standard meal provided by the base as usual. But apart from the meal, there was also a white cup. He opened it and saw that it contained his medicine. Outside, a team member, holding a meal, sat across from Hewen, still shaken. Damn, that scared the hell out of me. I thought I made a huge mistake with my data, you know. And then he just tells us to go eat. There was even a bit of gentleness. Okay, I admit it's a bit too much to describe young Master Zhang as gentle as spring rain, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? Hewen finished the last bite of his meal calmly. I get it, but that's nothing. Monday. The Tong Feng class still had a 4-hour mechanics lecture in the morning. At noon, Bai Lian and Ning Xiao met up with a few others and went to the laboratory. As they arrived at the lab, they found Hu Yu and the others unusually quiet. Hu Yu, sitting to the side, had the teaching assistant gesture to them with a wait a moment sign. From inside the lab's office came the faint sound of voices. Bai Lian took off her cloak, not intending to eavesdrop on Zhou Wenqing's conversation with others. But because Zhou Wenqing's voice was somewhat agitated, she ended up overhearing. Director, never mind that we haven't been able to get materials for 6 months, now we have new students here. Zhou Wenqing sounded very angry. And at this time, you want us to hand over research results. Do you think that's reasonable? The voice inside was also helpless. It's not about being reasonable. Your project has been without results for a long time, and there's talk of shutting down your group. I'll sign the contract first, and we'll talk about the rest at the end of the year. I'm not signing any damn contract if we don't even have the materials. What are we supposed to develop? Zhou Wenqing couldn't help but let out a curse. Tang Ming also faintly heard a bit of the conversation. He scratched the back of his head and asked Hu Yu, "Sister Hu, what are Zhou's team arguing about?" "It's about our lab," Hu Yu frowned. "We're supposed to be developing semiconductors and superconductors, and a part of it involves industrial materials. Today, the director came over to say we need certain research results by the end of the year. If things go badly, our lab might get handed over to someone else, and it could have a big impact on the teachers too." Tang Ming was taken aback. He had a strange feeling inside, as if wherever he went, something went wrong in that lab. "What's Zhou going to do?" "I don't know." Lu Shixiang put down the data he was holding. For a moment, no one in the office felt like continuing to look at the data. Bai Lian listened in from the side, looking at the door of the inside office. Inside the office, the director was trying to persuade in a good-natured voice. "Think positively. If you produce results by the year's end, you'll have a clear path ahead. The position for deputy dean is still open. Think about it. If you succeed, it might be yours. You guys sure know how to put it straightforwardly. Without materials, what results can we have? Can you guarantee enough materials for me?" Zhou Wenqing was laughingly angry. "I have 4 students under me, and 10 interns. What are you going to have them do?" Seeing that Zhou Wenqing could not be swayed, the director lost patience. He simply put down the papers, pulled open the door, and walked out. "This is an order from above. You're supposed to sign it no matter what." A bunch of students inside the lab watched the director leave, and the director didn't look at anyone as he left with an upset expression. Bang! The door to the lab was closed. The teaching assistant hurried in to check on Zhou Wenqing. Ding Wenyang, Tang Ming, and the others looked at each other, almost all turning to Bai Lian. "What do we do now?" Bai Lian took off her cloak without a word, just poured a cup of tea, knocked on the door, and entered Zhou Wenqing's office. Inside the office, Zhou Wenqing's desk was in disarray, and the teaching assistant was comforting him. "Bai student," Zhou Wenqing looked at Bai Lian's calm face and pressed his brow. "You're just in time. I think you should talk to Dean Huang and consider moving to another lab." Bai Lian didn't respond to that but instead bent down to place a disposable cup in front of Zhou Wenqing, and said unhurriedly, "It's okay. You drink some tea first and calm down." Chapter 742. 295 Labs Golden Thigh. _1 Zhou Wenqing had been researching this project for several years. Most domestic laboratories focus their superconductivity research on nickel, with few studies on palladium. Zhou Wenqing's team's simulated calculation results had already predicted this possibility. But palladium is a precious metal, and the experiment team's annual usage is regulated. Jiang University's resources have always been among the best in domestic institutions, generously supporting various laboratories. Even palladium is allocated to them each year, but this was far from sufficient for Zhou Wenqing. Every year, he would go to Dean Huang to complain in order to ensure his team members graduated smoothly. However, metals have always been scarce domestically, and resources are limited. Zhou Wenqing knew that even the university president was helpless in this situation. They measured palladium usage by the gram. This was the first time someone had discussed with him using gene caddy. It was akin to an ordinary person hearing about 1,000 gene of gold. Zhou Wenqing doubted his ears. "Bai student, what did you say?" Bai Lian's relationship with Wang Yufeng was special, not only because of the life-saving incident that night but also because of Wang's grandmother's companionship and assistance in her later years. And as for Ning Xiao, there was no need to mention. Debts of gratitude are difficult to repay. Palladium purification was no easy task. This was Bai Lian's first time making an inquiry. Wang Yufeng didn't have much stock on hand, so he mobilized warehouses from various locations to procure this quantity for Bai Lian. "How much do you approximately need?" Bai Lian realized that 100 gene was a bit too much. She gave it some thought and tapping on her phone, calmly explained, "I have an uncle who specializes in this business, and he can invest in our laboratory." Roughly, Zhou Wenqing came back to his senses and said a number he thought was preposterous. 30 gene. Bai Lian nodded. "Okay, I'll arrange for you, it should arrive in a few days." Zhou Wenqing watched Bai Lian leaving the office, then picked up the cup in his hand. He silently withdrew the kilograms he intended to say. Bai Lian preferred to describe it in traditional gene, while Zhou Wenqing preferred the scientific gram. 3,000 grams. which was roughly what he applied for from the school every year. The door closed. On the side, the assistant heard the 30 gene from Bai Lian's mouth, which was 30 gene of the experimental material palladium, not 30 gene of cabbage. The office ambience, which had been very tense just a second ago, now took on a fantastical air. The assistant watched Bai Lian's figure. He had heard of Bai Lian through working with Zhou Wenqing for Tong Feng. This year's freshman, good-looking, with exceptional thinking. Chapter 743. 295 Labs Golden Thigh. _2 She immediately opened the mixing software Dean Jian had sent her and put on her headphones. Today Zhou Wenqing didn't have time to oversee them, so she took the opportunity to listen to Dean Jian's tuning. Yu looked at the software, which went from simulating components to a black and white page that seemed to be an audio page, which she did not recognize. "What is this?" she asked, pointing at Bai Lian's computer. "It's for listening to music," Bai Lian said, seeing that Yu was also free, and handed her the other headphone. Yu had her mind on Zhou Wenqing's matters and wasn't in the mood to listen to music. However, since Bai Lian offered it to her, she still took it and casually placed it in her ear. Yu wasn't much of a fan anymore. Although she was somewhat out of it compared to others, her time was still fragmented during her graduate studies, so she rarely had time to listen to music or watch dramas. The music in the headphones was a classical melody she had never heard before. A very beautiful melody. Just by listening to the music, one could ride across the Jianghu, experiencing joy, enmity and eventually, a poignant retreat from the world. Yu had never studied music and her sense of music was as though she couldn't make out the details and tilted her head to ask Bai Lian, "What instrument is this? It sounds so good." For a moment, her ears were filled with nothing but music. She momentarily forgot about the major incident that had just happened in the laboratory. "Kong Ho, Xiao, Yongqin, Eru," Bai Lian said, her pale fingertips tapping on the table, tilting her head slowly as she spoke to Yu, "and there's a guzheng solo coming up later." Yu had heard of these instruments, but she did not know what they sounded like. It was the first time Yu had heard such beautiful music and sound quality. She asked Bai Lian the name of the song. Bai Lian didn't know the name of the song either. This was a new song that emerged spontaneously after Dean Jian had finished composing Blossoms on the Tree with her, the lyrics which Bai Lian hadn't written yet, so she didn't know either. She crossed her arms, leaning lazily against the back of the chair, tilting her head. "Senior sister, do you have any thoughts after listening?" "After listening, I feel like sailing the high seas," Yu sighed lightly, normally indifferent to worldly matters, happy even when called to fill a headcount for academics because she could enjoy the tea break, but now she felt a rare sense of sadness. "I don't know if the eldest apprentice brother can graduate next year." Only after coming to do her postgraduate studies did Yu realize that academia was not so pure either. Once it involved interests, everything became very complicated. "He will," Bai Lian interjected. "Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 744. 295 Labs Golden Thigh. _3 Their top boss, Wang Yufeng. Not to mention Xiaowu. Even Mao Kuan dreaded him. Su Chun quickly set aside what she was busy with and asked Henji Wei to check on Su Wenyao's status. Su Wenyao looked at her and asked, "Do you desperately need money?" "I have to make money for the boss." Su Chun picked up her cotton coat and glanced back at her. "But when it comes to money, who doesn't like it?" She left. Su Wenyao needed to remove his 4 early, as he was considered Bai Lian's brother. Henji Wei had heard about him from Xiaowu and was also very polite towards Su Wenyao. He drove back to the Su family mansion after removing the 4. He played with Xueqi in the living room for a while. He had just finished his graduate examinations and needed to start preparing the application materials for the follow-up interviews in a couple of days. Old Madame Su spoke with him for a while, her fingers rolling a string of Buddha beads in her hand. She had lately been thriving and was more spirited than ever. "I had your aunt arrange a dinner with a few professors. Have you decided whose research team you want to join?" "I have some thoughts," Su Wenyao said, leaning on a nearby table and slowly twirling a rattle drum, his demeanor relaxed. "If you had gone with the Qi family at that time," old Madame Su began, but didn't finish, recalling something. "Your father is dining with an old classmate tonight. You've heard of his daughter Su Yajun." Now the Su family was gaining more influence in Yunshao district. making old Madame Su stand tall and confident in the presence of the Qi family. Qi Shuyun was no longer her only choice. Her sights began to shift towards other eligible young women. Su Wenyao never argued with old Madame Su about such matters, and went upstairs to tidy up in the study. Wenyao, old Madame Su watched his retreating figure as he ascended the stairs. Are you still entangled with that bar girl? Su Wenyao didn't respond to her. Old Madame Su gazed at his departing back, her expression profound. Old Madam, the butler tucked Xueqi in with a blanket. The young master always has his own thoughts. You needn't worry too much about him. Butler Su, the old lady lowered her gaze, her hands idly twisting the Buddha beads. She spoke slowly. Arrange a meeting with that woman for me. 29 Tall Street. The Su family. Dinner time. Old Master Su put down his chopsticks and accepted the cup of green tea handed to him by the servant. Looking at Su Jueming, I heard there was some unrest in Jiangjing today? Su Jueming glanced at Su Jueling and Su Nanjing at the dining table and replied without much emotion. Jiangjing has been quite lively recently, even old Chen has been stirred up. He stepped out the Chen family's doors 4 times in just a few days. They discussed the latest happenings in Jiangjing. What about the Mu family? I heard that their old man has made an appearance, old Master Su said slowly. Su Jueming didn't pay much attention. What can they accomplish anyway? After dinner, Su Jini walked alongside Su Jueming, inquiring whether they should court favor with the Mu family. I heard the Mu family has ties to the Jiang family. But such rumors, no one dares to spread casually. How could that be? You see, even the Gao family isn't taking it to heart. What connection could the Mu family have with them? Su Jueming thought it was a smokescreen. Mu Qiong is gone, the Mu family poses no threat now. With that time, he'd rather strengthen communications with the Ming family and the Lung family. In the meantime, Su Jueling and the others returned to the courtyard, and he then asked Su Nanjing, "What's with your uncle being so secretive?" Su Nanjing was acquainted with Chen Beixian and Jiang Shijue. He was more in the loop than his father. Today, it seems someone arrived in Jiangjing. Su Nanjing knew only so much. I heard from Sister Beixian that the visitor is a high-ranking member of the Dawson family. The Dawson family, the behind-the-scenes owners of the Azure Dragon Bar and proprietors of the auction house. Who exactly had come, the Chen family hadn't found out yet. But without exception, even the Chen family wanted a partnership with them. No wonder he's being so secretive, Su Jueling contemplated. Su Jini and their group are chummy with the Azure Dragon Bar. Beijing is indeed lively recently. What about the Mu family? Regarding this, Su Nanjing said without a change in expression, take the opportunity to have tea with President Mu more often. While the two of them were discussing serious matters, Gao Yan wasn't listening. She was on the side, discussing with the Su family's butler about picking a day with good weather for Bai Lian and Gao Shu to visit the Su family and appreciate the plum blossoms, and to arrange the desserts for the occasion. Wednesday. After morning classes ended, Bai Lian didn't go to the cafeteria to eat, but instead left Jiangjing University. An hour later, at Qinglong Bar. At this time, the bar hadn't opened for business yet. Quite a few people were loitering at the entrance. Bai Lian got out of the car, wearing a black cloak, and entered through the front door. By her side, a young man who wanted to remind her that the bar wasn't open at noon was startled to see a manager-looking person respectfully coming out to welcome Bai Lian. He ended up looking up at the enormous sign of Qinglong Bar. Extremely shocked. That's right. Qinglong Bar. Who is this girl? 20 minutes later, Bai Lian came out with a canvas bag in hand. Yunshao district has always been the economic center. Today is Wednesday. Bai Shaoqi and Song Min were in the same class, and they only had classes in the latter half of the afternoon. Chapter 745. 296 Line to Win. Jiang Shiju won. Bai Lian sat on the chair, passing something with her left hand to the side while her other hand continued to respond to Sun Fei's messages. She did it with ease and casualness. Even though Hu Yu felt it should be quite heavy, she used both hands to receive Bai Lian's canvas bag. But the moment she took hold of it, she underestimated its weight, and the overbearing palladium gold made her involuntarily stumble forward. Bai Lian's head did not lift, yet her hand accurately supported the bag. Senior sister, be careful. Once she steadied herself, Bai Lian raised her eyebrows and eyes, holding her phone, shedding her lethargy, her beautiful brows and eyes revealing a sharp edge. Hu Yu found it somewhat dazzling. After steadying herself, she gripped the bag with both hands and placed it on the table. She unzipped it and asked about the song from yesterday. I couldn't find that song even with a different software. As for the palladium mentioned by Lien, who you didn't really pay attention. It hasn't been released yet and will take some time. Lien stood up again. Senior sister, you keep these for now, I might need to take another leave this afternoon. She needed to make another trip to Unshaken district. Oh sure, it's fine. The teachers don't have much going on anyway. While Yu pondered how she got a demo if it hadn't been released yet, she was startled by the contents of the opened bag the next second. Inside were several dozen chicken egg-sized silver-white metal squares. The front was engraved with numbers and letters. 46 Palladium 106. 42 having dealt with palladium gold for the past 2 years. Yu recognized at a glance what it was. After realizing it, she quickly closed the canvas bag, concealing the palladium gold inside. Palladium gold. This is real. This was the most palladium gold Yu had ever seen in the laboratory at one time. Tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. Together, these pieces of palladium gold were more extravagant than gold itself. When their laboratory obtained a kilogram, they treated it as if it were the god of wealth, let alone now with such a large bag. Senior. Yu leaned on the table and looked up to find Lien, but Lien had already left the room. Senior brother, now knowing what was in the bag was palladium, Yu easily lifted the 30 pounds of palladium and handed it to Yu, the senior brother. She earnestly instructed, This is palladium. Take good care of it while I go and fetch the teacher back. The dean's office at Huang Institute. Zhou Wenqing was in the midst of a heated debate with the department head. Yu is still an excellent graduate of the physics college. Dean Lin, are you making my 4 students take the fall? Chapter 746. 296 Lying to win. Jiang Shijue underscore 2 palladium gold is precious and rare. Even Jiang University couldn't gather so much palladium in a short time. Faced with a heap of palladium, Zhou Wenqing and his 4 students didn't know what to say for a moment. Seeing that they hadn't come out for quite a while, Tang Ming politely knocked on the door. Brother Liu, could you take a look at my data? The door opened. Brother Liu looked utterly bewildered. Tang Ming then saw the silvery metal on the table. He didn't pay it much mind and casually asked, Iridium? Iridium. Palladium is several times more expensive than gold, and iridium is even more precious than palladium. A scarce metal in major laboratories and bases alike. Oh, Brother Liu paused, then explained. Junior, this is palladium, not iridium. The junior sister said she's giving it to our lab, but 30 pounds, that's so much. As Brother Liu spoke, the others in the office nodded in agreement. Palladium gold is essentially a precious metal that is priceless on the market. Not to mention iridium. I see, said Tang Ming, scratching the back of his head. Don't you need to conduct experiments? Mao Ji has a lot of these things at home. He raised his hand to show the iridium on his wrist. I also use it to exercise, it's very effective. Brother Liu. In the office, the others also stared at Tang Ming's wrist, speechless even after Tang Ming left with Brother Liu. Even academician Ma wouldn't dare to be so extravagant, would he? The door was closed once more. In the office, Yu turned to Zhou Wenqing. Teacher, can we continue our research now? Zhou Wenqing settled back into his office chair. He had no particular intentions with these new students and certainly didn't expect to improve his performance through them, as his lab members were all quite laid back. But now, he stared at the pile of palladium on the table, absorbed in thought. He knew this year's freshmen were far from ordinary, but what kind of people were they exactly? Bai Lian, Ning Xiao, Tang Ming. Not one of their surnames was familiar to him. Where did they get these things that even Jiang University lacked? Yunshao District. In the precinct, at Sun Fei's office. In half a year, the police station had been purged once, and Sun Fei had been promoted to brigade commander. It's not easy for a woman in any industry, and Sun Fei had to be much more capable than others to stand out among many officers. Her visibility increased after the Bai Lian incident, and with this promotion, her capabilities became even more prominent. Miss Bai. Sun Fei closed the door and handed Bai Lian a cup of tea. Please have a look. It'll be outside if you need anything. Just call me. Thank you. Bai Lian looked up, thanked Sun Fei, the computer screen's glow falling into her dark pupils, diffusing a lazy, polite, and gentle light. Chapter 747. 296 Lying to Win. Jiang Shijue _3 Xueqi. After putting down the phone, Chief Physician Lu went to the Medical Affairs Department to check the medical records. The illness of Su An was not common, and that particular case was also a classic one for the hospital. Since the patient had been hospitalized before, their electronic records were preserved. Dr. Lu had reviewed them last year and still had some memory of it. As soon as Bai Lian arrived, Chief Physician Lu sent her the patient's information and details of the illness. A black car stopped in front of the CRFS building. Bai Lian's apricot-colored embroidered shoes landed on a thin layer of snowflakes. Her cold fingertips opened the message Dr. Lu had sent, which contained an image, the patient information found by Dr. Lu. Patient name, Ji Xiaorong. Bai Lian put away her phone. Zhang Fulai was still in the underground lab. The temperature was low, so he was wearing a coat covered with a white lab coat. With fingers as pale as his coat, he held a black pen. He was methodical in whatever he did, although sometimes he could be impatient with his team members. After he finished analyzing the data for the day, he reached out to turn off the projector. Everyone in the lab was flipping through their notebooks. Outside the door, the waiting assistant entered as he finished. "Young Master Jiang, Mr. Ming is here." "Ming Dongheng?" Jiang Fulai gave an in response, his face expressionless. He closed his notebook and was about to head inside. Having worked overtime recently, he had finally created the concept drawing for the engine. Hesitantly, the assistant spoke up. "Mr. Ming has brought a girl to the top floor lounge." Jiang Fulai's footsteps halted. He looked back, gathered his pen and notebook, and while taking out his mobile phone from his lab coat pocket, he removed his coat and walked out. His emotions were clearly displayed. "When did they arrive?" he asked in a deep voice. "While you were in the meeting," the assistant replied, observing his expression and movements while wondering who the girl Mr. Ming brought could be, and quickly followed him. Jiang Fulai casually carried his white coat and passed through the air raid shelter door after an iris scan. The black hem of his clothes flowed in a noticeable arc. When he entered the elevator, his light-colored eyes landed on the assistant. "Next time she comes, let me know in advance." He didn't specify which she, but the assistant got the hint. It probably wasn't referring to Ming Dongheng. The two reached the first floor. Jiang Fulai's private restroom was at the top of the building, accessible by a separate elevator. He exited the elevator and headed to another one that wasn't open to other people. In the lobby on the first floor, a group of people happened to be passing by. Men and women. Chapter 748. 296 Lying to Win. Jiang Shiju under 4 Jiang Fulai was indifferent to the songs for Yan Lu, his long and powerful fingers resting on the armrests on both sides of the seat, casually glanced at the computer screen, and then his gaze moved to her face. She wore a celadon-colored top today. Her hair was entirely pinned up with a pin that faintly emitted a purple hue, revealing a pair of dark eyebrows. Her facial features exuded a lazy, scholarly air. "Come and take a look." Bai Lian didn't bother with who used flooding messages, replying with 2 words to Dean Jian. Jiang Fulai leaned over, his lips landing gently yet firmly at the corner of hers. "Wait for me a bit, let's go out for dinner." He had casual wear on standby here, grabbed an outfit, and went to the bathroom at the back to shower. Outside, Jiang Shijue leaned on the bar, his eyes on the door to the lounge, casually talking to Ming Dongheng lifting weights nearby. "Xiaoming, is Miss Bai really in there?" Answered Ming Dongheng, lifting a dumbbell with one hand, his response light and unaffected. Thank heavens, after more than a year, Jiang Shijue was finally going to meet Bai Lian in person. Everyone from the Jiang family to Gao Shu's group was curious about Bai Lian's existence. Such a person had only appeared once in the Jiang family in 100 years. Without him, the Jiang family might have become as fragmented as the Mu family and gradually faded from Xinjiang district. Jiang Shijue was highly curious about who had tamed a bewitching existence like Jiang Fulai, especially after hearing Ming Dongheng's description. A milk tea with double sugar. Was that something Jiang Fulai would bother to pick up with his fingers? Of course, curious as he was, Jiang Shijue had never investigated Bai Lian. Everything he knew came from what he heard from Su Nanjing's and Ming Dongheng's mouths. Will her presence be stronger than Sister Bai Ixuan's? Jiang Shijue straightened his collar. As he was speaking, the door to the lounge was pushed open from the inside. Jiang Shijue quickly dropped his hand, standing tall outside the door, dignified with the authority of Zongxing's executive CEO. hands at his sides, also displaying a polite demeanor. Beside him, Ming Dongheng, who hadn't been paying much attention to Zhang Shijue, also put down his weights. The first to come out was Zhang Fulai. He wore a black coat, speaking softly to the person behind him, holding a checkered scarf in his hand, with a white cloak casually draped over one arm. Clearly, the cloak wasn't his. Zhang Shijue was taken aback at the sight and only then saw the girl behind Zhang Fulai. She was only holding a laptop, wearing a casual celadone top, white buttons done up to her neck, her eyebrows modestly lowered. She wasn't what Zhang Shijue had imagined. Instead, she had a subdued, lazy air. Chapter 749. Jiangjing's Top Circle. Taking Wenji Xia to the Su family to admire the plum blossoms. _1 Mathematics requires a certain talent. If you don't understand a problem, even a teacher's 10 years of explanation would be useless. Aside from that, it also requires a passion and practical skills. Ning Xiao had never received formal tutoring in mathematics, and yet, back in Xueqi, he was already considered on par with Ren Wanxian and Chen Zhu. Later on, he joined the enhanced class and with guidance from Zhang Fulai, his long-term foundation and hard work meant that his current research on a project and direction was in no way inferior to Hu Yu. There's no need to mention Bai Lian. She had already understood the concept of integration back in Dayong, where they used A, B, C, D, instead of the simplified numbers of today. Previously, her master had only taught her about measuring land and constructing specific diagrams of riverbanks and water channels. Modern science was a powerful addition to her arsenal. Zhou Wenqing's lab had few students, and the department head had issued an ultimatum. The lab was busy recently. Senior Liu and others were researching palladium experiments, and Hu Yu was earnestly instructing her juniors in data calculation. What Bai Lian gave her were the quantum bits with different parameters that needed to be calculated. Their research focus was on superconductors, inevitably involving the consideration of quantum tunneling related to superconducting quantum computing. This was a crucial part of their project. Hu Yu planned to first familiarize her juniors with this project, but to her surprise, in just a week, Bai Lian had already given her parts of the calculated results. And then there was Ning Xiao. At this moment, Hu Yu was truly wide awake. She turned on her computer to check the material structural model provided by Ning Xiao. One bit after another. Hu Yu did not leave the lab. Instead, she took out her phone to contact Senior Liu. Senior Liu had already showered and was ready to sleep when he received Hu Yu's call. Puzzled, he asked, "Junior sister, you're not asleep yet?" "I can't sleep anymore, senior brother," Hu Yu said spiritedly as she looked at the computer. "Come over and look at the material model Ning Xiao constructed and, also, the quantum parameters estimated by Junior Bai. Come to the lab first and see." Previously, due to the insufficient palladium, the number of quantum bits they captured wasn't stable. The dozy Senior Liu hurriedly grabbed his coat and headed to the lab. At 3 a.m, Senior Liu and Hu Yu finished reviewing the results achieved by Bai Lian and Ning Xiao over the past week or so. They looked at each other in astonishment. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 750. Jiangjing's Top Circle. Taking Wenji Xia to the Su family to admire the plum blossoms. _2 Influenced by Tang Ming, he always referred to Ning Xiao as the study god, and the forums all knew this title by now. And indeed, he truly lived up to the name of study god. That's not how you calculate it. Did the original poster not consider the hard requirements? Bai Lian and Ning Xiao are certainly smart, but Gao Yuan is from the Gao family, and lately, I haven't seen Bai Lian and the others much. Looking at Gao Yuan's social media, they have been continuously preparing for this year's Jiang University Science and Research Contest, getting ready for the boss training camp. Bai Lian should be smarter than Ning Xiao, but why haven't I seen her at the preparation camp? A bit disappointing. According to incomplete statistics, the school only gave Xueqi 2 spots for the preparation camp. She probably didn't register. People on the forum were arguing noisily, with many being fans of Bai Lian, staunchly supporting her and her group. But most remained rational, questioning whether Zhou Wenqing and his team's project could even continue into the end of the year. Bai Lian was unaware of everything on the forums. For the past week, she had been helping Hu Yu and the others with data modeling, and most of the time, It was Tang Ming and his team who took turns bringing food to the laboratory. After handing over the process data to Hu Yu, the next evening Bai Lian took her laptop and said to Hu Yu, "Senior sister, Ning Xiao and I won't be coming to the lab these next few days." The new junior didn't need someone to guide her, and she could even help with the core data. Especially since she could also earn a lot of gold coins. Where could you find such a junior? Hu Yu stopped her discussion with Ding Wenyang, preparing to see Bai Lian off. "Junior sister, you have things to do, and even if you're busy until the end of the semester that's fine. This little bit of research, Ding Wenyang and I will handle it with ease." "Junior sister, goodbye." She stood at the entrance of the laboratory building, waiting until Bai Lian was out of sight before she couldn't help but jubilantly return to the lab. She began chatting with Ding Wenyang about the gossips on the forum. "Little Ding, does Ning Xiao really have over 4 million points?" There had been a lot of discussion about Ning Xiao on the forum lately. Many doubted the authenticity of the over 4 million points since even Gao Yuan had only more than 2 million points, and with Ning Xiao himself not confirming it, some suspected it was an upperclassman with the same name. "Yes, what about it?" Ding Wenyang handed the report he had printed out to Hu Yu. Hu Yu. She felt these newcomers had a talent for driving people crazy. Chapter 751. Jiangjing's Top Circle. Taking Wen Jixia to the Su family to admire the plum blossoms. _3 Bai Lian could only hand over the gift to Zhang Fulai, to pass it on for her. Both were busy, and although they were in the same city of Jiangjing, their opportunities to meet towards the year-end were even fewer than in Xiangqing. Bai Lian picked up the elegant sandalwood box and sat down. The box was a bit heavy, she didn't open it immediately, but talked with Zhang Fulai about the recent laboratory work. Although Zhou Wenqing's lab was busy, the atmosphere was very good. Zhang Fulai, watching her speak energetically about the lab, didn't ask her any further questions about the lab and Ning Xiao. "I'm planning to bring a silk scarf embroidered by my grandfather for Aunt Gao," Bai Lian said while playing with the sandalwood box, telling Zhang Fulai about Gao Yan inviting her to enjoy the plum blossoms. A few days ago, Gao Yan had invited Bai Lian and Gao Shu to the Su family's plum blossom admiring event. Gao Shu was busy with the transfer of responsibilities at the drama theater, and Bai Lian had been in the lab all along, so the plum viewing had not been scheduled to date. "That'll work," Zhang Fulai had heard about this from Bai Lian long ago. "I've had Ming Donghing prepare other items for you, you can just take them with you when the time comes." In the span of nearly a year, Su Nanjing and Gao Yan had given Bai Lian quite a few gifts. And that included the home tutor that Gao Yan had tried, but failed, to gift her. Bai Lian's fingertips tapped on the sandalwood box. Her phone lit up a few times. It was a message from her racing buddy. "Racing buddy, engagement on the 28th of the 12th lunar month. Racing buddy. Racing tonight." Since coming to Jiangjing, Bai Lian seldom went racing, and with the recent lab work, even less so. However, she was somewhat aware of the affairs of the Wen family. Next to her, Zhang Fulai kept talking to her, and without Bai Lian deliberately hiding her phone screen from him, he naturally saw the message flashed up, his face as aloof as ever, his long lashes only slightly drooped. The racetracks in Jiangjing are very slick right now. His slender fingertips closed the laptop on the table in front of them, ready to have a serious conversation with her. "I know," Bai Lian said nonchalantly, tapping on her phone. "I'll bring a friend along, I'm not sure if Aunt Gao would mind." Zhang Fulai raised an eyebrow, slowly saying, "If you refrain from dangerous outdoor activities, I could move her plum garden into Shanghai apartment without a problem." Bai Lian sent a somewhat regretful message to her racing buddy. "The weather is too dangerous, would you like to admire the plum blossoms instead?" Racing buddy? On the other side of the phone. Chapter 752. Jiangjing's Top Circle. Taking Wen Jixia to the Su family to admire the plum blossoms. _4 Actually, Wen Jixia also knew her own situation. She was not originally from Jiangjing, and she couldn't fit in with the group of socialites there. Wen Jiwei got along well with those socialites, so they all intentionally or unintentionally isolated her, especially those who had dealings with the Wen family. Wen Jixia was very aware that she had been pushed out of the circle by these people from Jiangjing. Those people were clearly telling her with their actions not to force herself into a different circle. To enjoy the plum blossoms? The elderly Mrs. Wen looked at her, nodding with a smile. "That's also fine. Is it the friend you met with last time? When can you invite her over to our Wen family? so Grandma can meet her too. When Jixia thought about Bai Lian's current dog-like appearance and leaned back, "You'll see her on the engagement day. Don't worry, you'll definitely like her." Their chat concluded. When Jixia went back up to her own room, the butler stood behind her like a ghost. "Miss, you should still try to fit into this circle as much as you can. The gathering this time is organized by Miss Lung, and that second miss from the Su family will definitely be there." "Butler, don't worry," when Jixia kicked open the door to her room, retorting, "Have a look at the stocks I've had you buying recently, haven't they gone up?" The butler paused as he looked at her composed face, naturally happy about the increase in the private funds, unable to fault Xueqi's abilities. She indeed had her own ideas, otherwise the Yu family wouldn't have taken an interest in her. After a pause, he asked again in a low voice, "Miss, are you really going to enjoy the plum blossoms? Or is it street racing?" When Jixia, pressing on her phone, ground her teeth and replied to Bai Lian, "Appreciate, whoever doesn't appreciate is a dog." She closed the door, and the butler stood outside for a while, the smile on his face disappearing as he sighed. After returning downstairs, the old Mrs. Wen also stood at the door in a daze. They both knew that when Jixia had just returned to Zhongjing and had not been accepted into many circles, and it was obvious that when Ji Wei was also excluding her. "Who is her friend?" the elderly Mrs. Wen whispered softly. "An alumnus from Beijing." "Beijing, huh?" Mrs. Wen's eyes dimmed with some regret for not bringing Wen Jixia back earlier, which led to the current situation. "Let it be, let her have fun for a while. She won't be free for much longer." The next day, Sunday, 7 o'clock in the morning. The Su family also owned a vast estate. Gao Yan lived in the Tsufeng court located on the south side of the estate. Across an arched bridge was the neighboring plum garden. Chapter 753, 298 Shock Xixia. What has she done in Xiangqing? First update. _1 The weekend break meant the morning traffic was light. Su family's butler had been waiting outside early in the morning. At 8:30, he saw a black car approaching from the side and immediately notified Gao Yan that Bai Lian had arrived. He then ordered someone to open the side gate beside Guangliang's main entrance, allowing the car to enter. The car drove all the way to the front courtyard and stopped. Today, hearing that Bai Lian and Gao Shu would visit the Su family, both Su Nanjing and Su Juling had not left home, and Gao Shu had not yet arrived at this point. Upon hearing from the butler that Bai Lian and Jiang Fulai had arrived, Gao Yan put down the small hexagonal rui lantern she was holding. Seeing Gao Yan head outside, Su Juling and Su Nanjing, who were sitting in the front hall, also put down their cups and stood up to walk towards the Chuehua gate. The three of them had just reached the Chuehua gate when the butler led Bai Lian and Jiang Fulai through the arch bridge to come in. Su Juling stood in the center, instantly noticing Jiang Fulai wearing a black over-the-knee coat. His gaze shifted, and his eyes fell on the girl walking to his left. Today, Bai Lian wore a lotus green coat, a shade of deep green that made her fair skin stand out. Her coat was unbuttoned, revealing a white knitted sweater and cream fleece trousers underneath. A loosely tied cream scarf around her neck had partially slipped off her shoulder, blown by the wind. With her coat on, her hair was casually tied back with a silk ribbon, and she wore a white fleece hat. Standing there, she radiated calmness and composure, exuding an elegance similar to the restraint of Chinese blue and white porcelain with deep blue patterns circling cloud-like layers above. Upon seeing Su Juling and Gao Yan, she smiled softly and greeted them gracefully. Su Juling had long heard about Bai Lian countless times from Gao Yan and Su Nanjing. There was no need to mention Su Nanjing, but Gao Yan's fondness for Bai Lian was almost overflowing. Unable to have more children due to health reasons, Gao Yan greatly yearned for a daughter. Su Jini was the only young miss of her generation in the Su family and had been doted on from a young age. Even her conflicts with Su Jueming did not affect Su Juling and Gao Yan's partiality towards her. However, after Bai Lian appeared, the frequently mentioned Genie in Gao Yan's conversations was replaced by Lian Lian. Su Juling had long wished to meet this girl mentioned so often by Su Nanjing and Gao Yan. Now, seeing her for the first time, he understood why Gao Yan liked her so much. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 754. 298 Shocking Xixia. What has she done in Xueqi? First update. Under Sa2 in Zhongjing, apart from university classmates, there are no other social circles, and my position in the one family is quite awkward. Today is the gathering of the young ladies from Jiangjing's elite circles. Both Miss Ming and Miss Su have been very successful in starting their businesses and have attracted many investors. Without someone to lead the way, it's hard for others in Zhongjing to integrate into this circle. 29 Tall Street. Does Wen Jixia know someone from Tall Street? Thinking this, the driver headed to Tall Street, a road with hardly any private cars, with gardens to the rear. Number 29 is a bright and grand gate. Simple and massive, it exudes an imposing aura. The driver parked the car tremulously at the gate, not daring to get out and open the door, merely glancing back. "Miss, are you sure? This is the place?" Wen Jixia had been playing games up until now, finally taking in the destination. She glanced outside, tapped to the main page, and opened WeChat to send a message to Bai Lian. "Did you send the wrong address? How did the plum viewing bring us to someone else's home?" Just after Wen Jixia sent the message, when she arrived at the gate, a woman known as Lan's mother approached. "Are you Miss Wen? I'm here to take you to Xueqi Court. Just call me Lan's mother." Lan's mother, who took care of Gao Yan's daily needs, stood with a straight back, conducting herself in a manner not found in common people. The driver from the one family hurriedly got out of the car. Having received a reply, Wen Jixia also got out of the back seat, following Lan's mother with hesitation. The old Su family estate occupies a vast area, with Xueqi Court located towards the south, at some distance from the main gate. Lan's mother didn't lead Wen Jixia along the main path. Instead, they skirted around via the gallery bridges. They passed Unshaken Pavilion, quickly reaching Xueqi Court. Xueqi Court. Gao Shu had just arrived not long ago and was sitting in the front hall with Zhang Fulai and Su Nanjing, warming up. The indoor heating kept the room warm, and through the lattice windows, one could see the warm pavilion outside. Bai Lian and Gao Yan were sitting on the edge of a serpentine railing, beneath which flowed a stream with fish visible beneath the ice-free water. When Lan's mother brought Wen Jixia over, Bai Lian had her arm lazily propped up on the railing, holding a box of fish feed. She was the epitome of leisurely contentment. Upon seeing Wen Jixia, Bai Lian lazily raised her hand in greeting, introducing her to Gao Yan. "My friend, Wen Jixia." Today, Wen Jixia wore a satin gown with a white fox fur coat draped over it, showcasing a certain ladylike charm. Chapter 755. 298 Shocking Jixia. What has she done in Xueqi? First update. Under Sa3, as soon as Wen Jixia heard Su Nanjing, she knew where she was. Su Third Young Master. Su Second Mississippi. These two were names Wen Jixia often heard within the one family, and she was as familiar with them as if they had been thundering in her ears. Upon reflection, the only estate that could have such an expansive land in this area, after counting them on her fingers, was the Su family that the old lady often spoke of. The illustrious and prestigious family in Zhongjing which the Wen family and the Yu family both wanted to establish ties with. Wen Jiwei was attending a gathering today that included the Su Second Mississippi. This was also one of the reasons why the old madam Wen wanted Wen Jiwei to bring Wen Jixia along. But how was Bai Lian connected to the Su family? From the looks of it, she and Su Nanjing seemed to be quite familiar with each other. What had her friend been doing over the past year? Su Third Young Master. I am Wen Jixia. Despite the shock in her heart, Wen Jixia formally introduced herself. Tang Ming and Pu Shaohan were casual to a fault, often addressing Su Nanjing as a brother, while Yang Lin was always one to interact solely with Bai Lian and not bother with anyone else, even when facing Zhang Fulai. This was the first of Bai Lian's friends to address him in such a manner. Upon hearing this, Su Nanjing knew right away that Wen Jixia was likely someone from the same circles. He chuckled. "Miss Wen can just call me Su Third, I am older than you, so you may also call me Third Brother." If Bai Lian brought her to the Su family and even personally accompanied her to admire the plum blossoms for an entire morning, Su Nanjing figured, not even Zhang Fulai would receive such treatment from Bai Lian. He led the way in front and, listening to Bai Lian speaks to Wen Jixia in an unhurried tone, thought his mother might be able to achieve her goal through indirect means. Bai Lian was unwilling to become her goddaughter, but perhaps someone else could take that place. The dining venue was in a side hall of Xueqi Court. Zhang Fulai was casually chatting with Su Jueling. He knew Bai Lian wanted to talk to her friend and hadn't disturbed her all morning. Now, when he saw her coming in with Su Nanjing, he reached out to pull back a chair beside him. Bai Lian approached the chair and introduced her. Wen Jixia, the one I've mentioned to you. She rarely introduced anyone formally. When Director Jian went to Xiangqing, Bai Lian merely gave a casual introduction. Zhang Fulai took a second look at Wen Jixia and stood up. His cold and distinguished nobility was apparent as he greeted Wen Jixia with composure. Hello. His voice was cool and somewhat aloof. Chapter 756. The bustling Jiangjing, Palladium sent by Mao Kuan, second update. _1 Kongyu Tower, a renowned old brand establishment in Jiangjing. The desserts are limited in supply, and takeout is not allowed, the main draw being their exquisite nature. It's also not easy to make a reservation. Madam Wen had been there a few times and was deeply impressed with the place. Hearing they were Kongyu Tower's desserts, Madam Wen looked down and examined them closely, squinting her eyes. It was difficult to duplicate Kongyu Tower's desserts, especially such realistic sugar fondant plum blossoms. There weren't many in Jiangjing skilled enough to create them. Madam Wen recognized at a glance that these were indeed Kongyu Tower's desserts, and ones only available to VIP guests at that. This, her spirits lifted, she observed the desserts brought back to the One family home and immediately sat up straight. Go call Xiaohen over. Xiaohen, the driver who had taken Wen Jixia out today. The Su family. Not long after Wen Jixia left, Bai Lian also returned. Su Nanjing followed onto the car, going to check on the apartment's renovations. Su Jueling said goodbye to them with Gao Yan, waiting until everyone had left. It was then that he spoke to Gao Yan, unable to restrain his admiration. Is Miss Bai really from Xiangqing? Her manner of speaking and her poise really don't seem like it. Her family is from Beijing City. Gao Yan walked beside him towards the gallery bridge, and hearing him laughed. She is this year's top scorer in the college entrance examination, even surpassing the one from the Liang family. Su Jueling had only just heard of this. Sometimes at dinner parties, he had heard a sentence or two about someone smarter than the Liang family, but like most people, he hadn't paid much attention. Intelligence was one thing, but whether or not someone could stand before them and reach the summit was a completely different matter. Now, hearing Gao Yan's words, he realized that Bai Lian was not the person he had imagined her to be. You know about Xu Shu being elected as dean this time? Gao Yan glanced at Su Jueling. Su Jueling, often busy with overseas enterprises, was aware of Gao Shu's promotion and had even asked the butler to send a congratulatory gift. The Zhou family is not easy to deal with. Indeed not easy to deal with, Gao Yan walked onto the gallery bridge, proud to say. Alien helped her a lot this time. Su Jueling was even more surprised. No wonder he kept pace with Gao Yan. I've felt that Jiangjing has been quite lively recently, with people from the Dawson family even coming over. My brother and the others have been inquiring about Wang Yufeng, and I wonder if there has been any news from the Chen family. In the car. After responding to Wen Jixia, Bai Lian reached for her computer. By her side, Zhang Fulai wasn't looking at her messages but was talking to President Huang. I've asked, said President Huang, who normally rested on Sundays and gathered with friends, most of whom were professors in Jiangjing. He stepped aside to answer Zhang Fulai's call. The person who issued the order directly to the institute was General Gao Sun. They wouldn't dare meddle with a big shot like Scholar Ma. But putting pressure on a laboratory center in the physics department of Jiang University was a matter of a few words. Gao Sun. Zhang Fulai opened the desk to make space for Bai Lian's computer. He recalled Gao Sun in his mind. Zhang Fulai didn't care much for the Gao family, but he remembered Gao Sun very well, a cousin of Gao Yi who, due to family connections, had risen quickly at headquarters. Zhang Fulai had a degree of tolerance for the Gao family. But not much, and it was all based on the condition they did not cross a certain line. The proposal you made to the professor to select one person by the end of the year to join his laboratory, that news couldn't possibly be hidden from the Gao family, said President Huang unsurprised. Little junior sister, you are also aware of her capabilities. Without stirring up some trouble, how would Gao Yuan have a chance? This makes things difficult for Professor Zhou, being forced to deliver results prematurely, and at the end of the day, it's somewhat related to you. Zhang Fulai tilted his head to look at Bai Lian. Bai Lian had already turned on her computer. She and Ning Xiao hadn't gone to Zhou Wenqing's laboratory today. Hu Yu sent her an email in the morning. It was about 4 pages of newly captured experimental data. Bai Lian was very skilled at processing this kind of data. Even Zhou Wenqing had been marveling these past few days that a student with Bai Lian's talent might not appear even once in 100 years, and his laboratory was lucky to have stumbled upon her. Zhang Fulai knew that Ning Xiao was working on new materials for purification, and the data on Bai Lian's computer seemed unrelated to plasma. He guessed that it must be research from Zhou Wenqing's laboratory. Bai Lian, no matter what she was doing, always seemed calm and composed. Zhang Fulai wasn't quite sure whether Zhou Wenqing was in any trouble, but seeing Bai Lian's demeanor, he reckoned that Zhou Wenqing and Bai Lian could manage without his concern. The problem he needed to resolve was with the Gao family. Zhang Fulai said to Dean Huang at a leisurely pace, "I understand." Though his tone remained cool and detached, a trace of danger could always be heard in his voice, causing Su Nanjing, who was in the passenger seat, to reach out and rub the goosebumps on her arm. On the other side of the phone, Dean Huang hung up and, judging from Zhang Fulai's tone, chuckled to himself. Upon arriving at Shanghai apartment, Bai Lian returned to the study in room 303 and continued to process the data. Chapter 757. 300 newcomers on the cutting edge. _1 The remaining palladium weighs about 70 gene. Each piece is the same size, with a silver-white metallic surface, and each has the periodic table form etched onto it. At this moment, he saw the letters Pa. He didn't realize which element it was, only looking at the numbers 46, 106, 42, and guessing it to be a metal from the periodic table. They were laid out very neatly. Su Nanjing reached out and took a piece in his hand, playing with it as he read the word etched below. Palladium Guardian Deity? The mirror-like reflection made Pu Xiaohan turn her head and squint, recognizing the two letters. This is palladium. Palladium? Su Nanjing and Ming Dongheng had special training in high school. From the first to the third year, after muddling through, he finally broke free from those studies and dove headfirst into the financial industry in college with Zhang Shijue, keeping away from physics and chemistry. He had long left behind satellite angular velocity periods and these chemical elements in his memory. Under the Su family, multiple industries were covered, the most important being heavy industry involvement with Zhongxing Group, which included several state-level labs, and Su Nanjing had been negotiating material resources with exporters from various countries over the last 2 years. Palladium sounded vaguely familiar in his ears, but not as familiar as uranium. What did Bai Lian want so much metal for? Su Nanjing closed the lid, somewhat puzzled. Ming Dongheng came down from upstairs, placing the fruit Ji Hang had asked him to bring on the table. Seeing the paper box that was unwrapped in the middle of the hole, he bent down and deftly moved it outside. Xiaoming, it's a bit heave. Su Nanjing stood in front of the box, and as he saw Ming Dongheng moving it, he barely got out the letter for heavy. Ming Dongheng then bent down and picked up the paper box as if it were a feather in his hands. He seemed even more effortless than the young man at the front door earlier. Su Nanjing. He was silent for a moment, then took 2 steps back and called for Pu Xiaohan to go upstairs to look at the newly decorated rooms. Influenced by Bai Lian over the past 6 months, Su Nanjing chose a Chinese-style decor. The pure white ceiling of the Great Hall featured wooden beams, and the mahogany corner flowers were simple and elegant. The restraint and quality of Chinese style were fully highlighted. She turned around in a circle, then turned back to ask Su Nanjing, "Big brother, can I come over next time to get some materials?" "Sure, Xiaohan, come any time," Su Nanjing said with his hand in his pocket, casually observing the decor. "The code is 6666. Everybody called each other what they pleased. After all, it didn't matter much for seniority. The postgraduate entrance exams had ended. Chapter 758. 300 Newcomers Edge. _2-inch Dean Huang? What are you doing here? The invigilator was somewhat surprised. I came to see the students from the Tongfeng class. Dean Huang had his hands clasped behind his back as he scanned the lecture hall, which was empty. Where is Bai Lian? Bai Lian was a celebrity at Jiang University. Even teachers from the English department knew that this year's freshman class had produced a Bai Lian, and occasionally they heard the name Ning Xiao as well. After enrollment, less people talked about Liang Wuyu, but mentioned Bai Lian's name, and not just people at Jiang University, but countless netizens knew her as the prestigious student of Jiang University. The invigilator naturally knew her, and he pushed his glasses up. Dean Huang, Bai Lian finished her exam and turned in her paper an hour ago. Dean Huang. Topology was too difficult, not to mention the fact that Ma Institute fellow personally set the questions. It was normal for Tang Ming and the others to say the questions were too difficult to finish. But she turned in her paper an hour early? Dean Huang had never seen anyone able to submit Ma Institute Fellow's paper so early, and wondered if it might be a bit too arrogant. Did she finish it? Bai Lian's handwriting was neat and attractive. The invigilator was curious about her, and had a very deep impression of her test paper. He nodded. She did finish. Finished, yes, but he did not know whether the answers were correct or not. Shanghai apartment. Butler Wen carried a gift, following behind Wen Jixia as they got out of the car. Miss, is this the place? He looked at building number 5. Wen Jixia looked down at her phone, confirmed the address, and since the address Bai Lian gave this time was very normal, she breathed a sigh of relief and led Butler Wen inside. Butler Wen glanced back. What's wrong? Wen Jixia walked up the steps. Nothing. Butler Wen shook his head, merely thinking that the person who had just been cleaning the trash had a lot of presents. The two of them knocked on the door of room 103. At room 103, the door was opened by Lance, who was holding a white jade chess piece and greeted Butler Wen, and I how. Then he returned to playing chess with Jiang He beside the glass door. Bai Lian had no exams in the afternoon. Since Ji Hang and the others went fishing yesterday, and Ning Xiao and the rest needed to study for finals and didn't have much time, Ji Hang asked Bai Lian to bring Yang Lin back for dinner with them. We're going back on the 29th, when Ji Xiao was going to announce her engagement on the 28th of the lunar calendar, and Bai Lian had arranged with Ji Hang to go back to Xiangqing that evening. Will you go back with us, or will you go back first? Yang Lin was also busy, with her part-time jobs, studies, and also managing the tasks given by Xia Zhuayu. Chapter 759. 300 newcomers on the edge. Underscore 3-inch have some tea. Bai Lian offered the tea to President Huang. Now's the time for tea? President Huang picked up the teacup, took a sip, and found it quite pleasant. He calmed down for a moment. His gaze fleetingly wanted to say something more, but then he caught sight of the girl quietly reading on the sofa. Yang Lin's personal style was quite distinct. She wore black-framed glasses year-round, had bangs that were very long, and shoulder-length hair. Just sitting there, she didn't have a strong presence. President Huang was taken aback for a moment, then stood up abruptly with a thump, and exclaimed in surprise, Yang Lin! Yang Lin closed her book and stood up. President Huang! Is it really you? President Huang's eyes lit up. I was in your lab just a couple of days ago and didn't see you. Yang Lin, have you given any thought to my suggestion from last time? Yang Lin glanced at his head and adjusted her glasses. President Huang, I'm just a freshman. No problem, I can wait. President Huang waved his hand dismissively. Yang Lin, you must believe that you are definitely better than old Xia. Yang Lin, I'm going down to help Grandpa. Yang Lin put down her book and went downstairs to room 103. The butler and Wen Jixia also realized that Bai Lian and President Huang had something to discuss, so they both went downstairs as well. Once out the door, the butler asked Wen Jixia, Who is that President Huang? The president? Which institute's president? Wen Jixia glanced back at room 303. She didn't know, but felt that this year, her friend had truly exceeded her expectations by far. Upstairs. After everyone left, President Huang sat down again to drink tea. I never expected you to know Yang Lin. These two people, one earmarked by academician Ma, the other favored by old Xia, were both destined to stand at the pinnacle of their fields. Jiang University had an abundance of talent this year. All right, but how do they all know each other? We were deskmates in our senior year. Bai Lian refilled President Huang's cup with tea. Deskmates in their senior year? From the same class and also from Xiangqing? President Huang was even more amazed. He had heard Xia Zhuayu mention Yang Lin, but only knew that her name was Yang Lin and that she was a student Xia Zhuayu valued. What a coincidence. Xiangqing was really brimming with talent this year. After discussing Yang Lin, President Huang brought up the main issue at hand with a serious expression. I haven't found Professor Zhou. What is he up to these days? Don't you really worry at all? He broke down the situation for Bai Lian, explaining the pros and cons. While President Huang spoke, Bai Lian listened quietly. Only after he finished did she look up. We all know, but I think Professor Zhou doesn't wish to apply for withdrawal himself. Not to withdraw? Chapter 760. 300 New Talents Sharp Edge. Underscore however, Song Min does know by Xueqi, and since he was a successful entrepreneur, the physics department had previously secured his sponsorship. They let both of them in without obstruction. Basically, all the professors from the physics department who were on campus had arrived. Dean Huang was sitting in the first row with his notebook in hand. Beside him, familiar people were inquiring Dean Huang about Zhou Wenqing's situation, but Dean Huang didn't speak right away. When Bai Lian and Ning Xiao arrived, the front row seats were already filled with various professors and mentors, and behind them were students brought by other teachers. Hen Shuyan and Su Yuanjun were among them. These two had been ordered by Sun Fu to return home, and this past month hadn't been easy for them, especially since their delay in graduation was a certainty. Now hearing about Zhou Wenqing's incident with Bai Lian, it made things a little more bearable for Hen Shuyan and the others, who, upon spotting Tang Ming, shot a scornful glance in their direction. With Zhou Wenqing's lab gone, it was true no one would take in Bai Lian and the others. Their fate wouldn't be much different. 8 o'clock. Zhou Wenqing still hadn't arrived. Director Lin looked calmly at Dean Huang. Dean, are you sure Professor Zhou will come today? Dean Huang unscrewed the lid of his thermos, took a sip of water, and replied composedly. Don't worry, Professor Zhou is still organizing the documents. With Dean Huang's assurance, most people continued to wait. Dr. Zhua and Sun Fu were sitting right behind Dean Huang, feeling relieved as they listened to Director Lin and Dean Huang's conversation. Good thing they had not kept any freshmen in their labs. Because of the Zhou Wenqing incident, both realized someone was targeting this group of newcomers, and Zhou Wenqing was merely caught up in it. 8:05. Director Lin stood up. Dean Huang, I don't think Professor Zhou has produced any results, so he didn't come today. I think there's no need for a meeting to discuss this. Let's just retract the project. As he spoke, the students exchanged glances with each other in confusion. Bai Xueqi withdrew her gaze from Bai Lian and looked at Song Min. Let's go. The professors, on the other hand, showed no surprise, for the outcome was inevitable, and they began to stand up, ready to leave. It was at this moment that the front door of the lecture hall was pushed open, and 3 figures entered. Zhou Wenqing had been working hard for several days. He was wearing glasses, casually dressed in a military coat, and had disheveled hair. Still quite composed, he approached the podium, placed his documents down. Sorry for being late, I was guiding them in uploading data to Nature. By his side, Yu bent down, plugged in the USB drive, and started the computer. Chapter 761. Jiang Gu leads the team with a crushing score of 1. Jiang University's graduate and doctoral training programs require published papers as a prerequisite for graduation. These are not only important academic achievements for the students, representing their personal abilities, but also mediums for international academic exchanges, enhancing their academic competitiveness. The project led by Zhou Wenqing wasn't too difficult, but it had a long cycle, and the materials were very difficult to acquire. After April, the experiment had made almost no progress. On stage, Yu broke from her usual leisurely demeanor, introducing their research to all the teachers and students present with great composure. We're continuously optimizing the material properties, increasing the critical temperature and critical magnetic field. Dean Huang sat in the front row, grasping his hands tightly. Finally, he relaxed and his tense body eased upon seeing the research results from Zhou Wenqing's lab. Next to him, however, Dean Lin was extremely puzzled. As the head of the department, he knew better than anyone that Zhou Wenqing's lab was out of experimental materials. He stared intently at the content on the slides, and although everyone present had different research interests, they could understand what Yu was talking about. Nobody left during the 1.5-hour presentation. Zhou Wenqing didn't sit down but stood to one side with his hands behind his back, watching Yu present on the stage, occasionally turning his head to look back at Bai Lian and the other new students. Thank you, teachers and classmates, Yu said after finishing the presentation. The lecture hall quieted for a moment, then the next second, it erupted into warm applause. Before today, the university town's forums had been buzzing with anticipation for this event. Before Yu and Zhou Wenqing's arrival, nobody could have imagined their lab would indeed achieve interim results ahead of schedule. This was also a breakthrough research for Jiang University's superconductivity project. Dean Huang, looking at Zhou Wenqing and Hu Yu's group, grabbed his coat and spoke with a calm and steady presence. Professor Zhou, I will request to the president that you accompany me to the summit in G City. At G City's academic summit, Jiang University's leading participants each year were the deans of various colleges, who would bring outstanding students along. Dean Huang's statement at this moment represented his stance. The position of vice dean of the physics department had been vacant for half a year, and this year they were ready to promote someone to step up. The presidents and deans of Jiang University don't come out of nowhere. Most are graduates of the university itself. Zhou Wenqing met this criterion, and with Dean Huang's statement, it was virtually decided. Chapter 762. Jiang Gu leads the team with a crushing score of 2 by Xueqi. Doctors Wu placed a pen in his notebook, returning to his senses and inquired of Bai Xueqi, "You said that those new students all come from Xueqi?" "Yes, that Bai Lian is my younger half-sister from the same father." Doctors Wu didn't say anything further. He knew that Bai Xueqi's information was incorrect. This year's freshmen only Bai Lian and Ning Xiao were well known, even overshadowing Liang Wei's prominence. Last month, before President Huang had asked him, Doctors Wu had already received news about Bai Lian and her group from Bai Xueqi. They were from Xueqi with no significant background, so he initially rejected Bai Lian and the group of new students so decisively. The students nearby were still discussing whether Zhou Wenqing was about to be promoted. Going from a professor to a vice dean, and to the vice dean of Jiang University School of Physics, at that, would grant him several times more power than he currently had. He would be an entity that Sun Fu and Zhuo Jinhua would have difficulty reaching within 10 years. Sun Fu and Bai Lian's group still had some conflicts, but that was manageable. Zhuo Jinhua, however, was feeling extremely uneasy. Reflecting on it now, when President Huang assigned the new students to him, it must have been because he knew some insider information and had Zhuo's best interests in mind, yet he failed to seize the opportunity. The people around them were all discussing the superconductivity Meissner effect or Zhou Wenqing and the new students. Zhuo Jinhua, however, couldn't continue listening and quickly left with his notebook in hand. "Brother." After Zhuo Jinhua had left, Bai Shaoqi and Song Min dared to approach. Bai Xueqi's eyes narrowed slightly as he led them towards the exit. "Do you still need funding?" "I still have some here." For the current Bai family, Bai Shaoqi was the hope for elevating their status, and he had always been very generous to Bai Shaoqi. The money was sent efficiently. "No need," Bai Shaoqi shook her head. "Brother, we too do not need the family's investment." Both were equally proud, desperately trying to prove themselves, especially under the circumstances of Bai Lian's exceptional performance. "All right," Bai Shaoqi patted Song Min's shoulder. "If you really can't make ends meet, come and find me." Zhou Wenqing's laboratory completed their project ahead of schedule, something most people on the forum didn't anticipate. Besides Sun Fu and Zhuo Jinhua, there was another group that was restless. In the neighboring study room, Wang Shi sat at the very edge, looking at posts on the forum. A second author in Nature, their regular grade should be higher than ours, right? Chapter 763. Jiang Gu leads the team with a crushing score of 3. Xiao Bingwen withdrew his gaze from Zhang Xiai's and Tang Ming, lowering his voice. There's quite a bit of pressure here. Not to mention Bai Lian, just the topic of how fast some small objects slid to a distance L that Tang Ming and Zhang Xiai's were discussing. Xiao Bingwen had long since forgotten. Su Nanjing smiled and then stuffed his hands into his pockets, following Xiao Bingwen outside. Xiao Bingwen reached out to open the door to room 303, but as soon as he opened it, he saw Yang Lin outside about to press the doorbell. Yang Lin had just come from school and was still wearing that black long-down coat, with the coats hood fastened on her head. Yang Lin had a distinct style. Ever since Xiao Bingwen found out that Bai Lian and her group of friends had all been admitted to Jiang University, he had taken a keen interest in them and naturally recognized her as one of the girls. The one from Xiangqing Hospital before. "Hi, young student." Xiao Bingwen was now very polite to the students from Bai Lian's group, as they might be asked to hold honorary positions at their Xiao family's company in another 10 or 8 years. Seeing Xiao Bingwen and Su Nanjing, Yang Lin, her deep eyes hidden behind glasses, gave a slight nod of acknowledgement. It sufficed as a greeting. She stepped aside and entered directly. As usual, cold and silent. Su Nanjing raised an eyebrow. Once outside and the door closed behind him, Xiao Bingwen trailed 2 steps behind Su Nanjing. Now, whenever I see Miss Bei's classmates, I always feel like each of them is extraordinary. That young man with Xiaoteng just now, I always feel like he has seen blood. That was Zhang Xiai's, whom Xiao Bingwen had rarely encountered. Probably close enough, he really has done time, said Su Nanjing, knocking on the next door, glancing at Xiao Bingwen. Qi Lu even sentenced him for a year. The door was opened by Ming Dongheng. Young Master and Chief Chen are in the study. Chief Chen is also here? Xiao Bingwen's eyes lit up as he spoke to Su Nanjing. The Chen family seems to have split into 2 new laboratories. If we had that kind of influence, we wouldn't need to ask professors to lend their names everywhere. After his promotion 6 months ago, Chief Chen's influence in Jiangjing had grown significantly, and even several senior figures had to give him respect. You're thinking right, Su Nanjing got a response from Jiang Fulai and opened the door to the study. Why don't you ask Brother Jiang or Academician Ma to lend you a name? Xiao Bingwen was about to say more, but as the study door opened, he shut his mouth. He followed Su Nanjing into the room respectfully and stood aside. The piano room and bedroom took up most of the space. The study in room 302 wasn't large. Chapter 764. Jiang Gu leads the team with a crushing score of 4, included Jiang Fulai. So most people at Jiang University really dare not intervene. The president of Jiang University and others have absolute power in Jiangjing. January 19th. Lunar December 18th, most undergraduates at Jiang University had gone home. The Tongfeng class hadn't officially gone on holiday, and they were gathering in class today. Zhou Wenqing sent a message in the group saying they would gather as usual at 8 o'clock, but today, just before 7, the lecture hall was already packed with people. Unlike other classes, the Tongfeng class would publicly release final grades on the spot, since they were also tied to the places for this year's Boss Winter Talent Camp, and to avoid any doubts, all were announced on the spot. Gao Yuan and Wang Zai's group arrived very early. By the time Bai Lian and her group got there, Gao Yuan and Wang Zai's group were already present. Both groups were the stars of the Tongfeng class this year, and as soon as the doors opened, the eyes of everyone in the Tongfeng class shifted their way. Bai Lian sat down casually next to them. Today, she didn't bring her computer or her thesis, just a few papers, which she looked at after sitting down, occasionally changing a word or two. Today the rankings and spots for the term were to be announced, and most people, including Gao Yuan, were too excited to stay calm. They glanced at the door from time to time, waiting for Zhou Wenqing to come, with some people quietly complaining that the final exam questions were too hard. Among Gao Yuan's group, Wang Shi was especially nervous. With the classrooms heating on, he had taken off his coat and was just wearing a shirt, with a thin layer of sweat in his palms. He occasionally looked over at Ding Wenyang and his group. After all, he had left Ding Wenyang's group for the sake of a spot at the Winter Talent Camp. This was extremely important for everyone in the Tongfeng class. Damn, I just heard that Gao Yuan's group gets tutored by Dr. Gao on the questions issued by Academician Ma every week. How can we even compare with them? Even Ding Wenyang was affected, turning back uneasily to look at Tang Ming. What do you think we'll score on the finals, especially the continuous assessment? Will Academician Ma give us like 30 points? The Tongfeng class was created by Academician Ma, who is also leading this new batch of students, and the continuous assessment was based on their performance in topology. For Ding Wenyang, Academician Ma was an unreachable height in his lifetime. To get even 30 points out of 100 from him was wishful thinking. Calm down. Tang Ming pulled out his phone, looking completely unruffled. How could Ding Wenyang stay calm? That was Dr. Gao after all. He tilted his head again to look at Ning Xiao next to Tang Ming. Ning Xiao had brought his laptop, revealing only the top half of his face. His eyes, slightly somber, hung low as his fingers ceaselessly tapped the keyboard. Obviously, he hadn't heard his comment. Ding Wenyang paused, then turned to look at Bai Lian in the innermost seat. Bai Lian's white bib was laid on the table, dressed in a crimson-colored traditional jacket. Her pale fingers idly pressed down on the paper, as her pen drew a series of musical notes. Even with her unusually bright attire, she still brought out a sense of light elegance. She looked up undisturbed. Her deep-set eyes made Ding Wenyang's restless heart suddenly settle. Around 7:50. Zhou Wenqing entered with a briefcase from outside. Zhou Wenqing looked refreshed after a week's rest, and as the door opened, Nearly all eyes in the classroom turned to him. Except for Bai Lian and Ning Xiao. Everyone arrived quite early today, smiled Zhou Wenqing as he walked directly to the lectern, without beating around the bush. All right, I'll go ahead and announce the rankings to you. He reached out and pulled out a stack of papers from his briefcase. Gao Yuan and the others watched Zhou Wenqing's hands intently, and the two groups at the front turned back and whispered to those next to them, "Hey, it's definitely Gao Yuan's group, with continuous assessment accounting for 40%, lab work 20%, and final exams 40%. The voice was very soft. But in the now quiet lecture hall, Gao Yuan and Wang Zai's group all heard it. Wang Shi almost held his breath, staring intently towards Zhou Wenqing. Gao Yuan appeared very calm, assured of his victory. Zhou Wenqing started handing out their assessment notices according to the rankings. Bai Lian 96 points, Ning Xiao 87, Tang Ming 84, Liang Wuyu 83, Su Zhiyue. Gao Yuan 78. Tang Ming went up alone and collected all of their scores. Several names were called out before it finally came to Gao Yuan and Wang Zai's turn. Obviously, Bai Lian's group, especially Bai Lian herself, scored far higher than Gao Yuan. Bai Lian 96 points? Her continuous assessment must be at least 90, right? Academician Ma gave her such high points? The people in the lecture hall looked at each other in disbelief, some looking at their own score of 20 for continuous assessment, not daring to speak out. Everyone had expected Academician Ma's scores to be low. But the continuous assessment scores for Bai Lian's group seemed excessively high. Sitting in the middle, Gao Yuan's face darkened. He stood up, his gaze falling on Zhou Wenqing's face. In the silence he spoke up, "Mr. Zhou, I know Bai Lian and the others are your students, but isn't it biased to openly protect them like this?" The classroom was left with only the sound of breathing. Zhou Wenqing looked at Gao Yuan seriously, frowning. "Gao Yuan, what do you mean by that?" Chapter 765. 302N0. 9 by Jian. Qinglong Bar Incident _1 topology was inherently difficult and wasn't something they were supposed to encounter at their current stage of learning. But Tong Feng's class was originally composed of students from the national team. Most of them started taking college courses in high school, and Academician Ma's thinking already reached the limits of human intellect, as his research on multidimensional topology had long surpassed ordinary imagination. No one was involved in exactly the same vein of research as Academician Ma, not even President Huang, who was only following a derivative path. The complexity of multidimensional topology was no less challenging than cracking a code on the first try. The problems Academician Ma left them with were not simple point-set topology exercises. Without specialized guidance, a week was not enough for most students in Tong Feng's class to digest a single lecture from him, which is why the gap between those with external assistance and those without was evident. The cousin that Gao Yuan mentioned was someone almost everyone in the room knew. He was the rising star the Gao family had introduced to compete with He-1. With his tutoring, Gao Yuan's group was sure to have higher average grades than the others. Their group usually scored around 60, which was high compared to others' 20 or 40. Especially since getting a passing grade from Academician Ma was in itself an affirmation. But Bai Lian's group was somewhat frightening, especially Bai Lian himself, with a total score of 96. That meant his regular score was at least 90. Academician Ma giving a freshman a grade of 90? Especially when Zhou Wenqing was the mentor of Bai Lian's group. Gao student, Zhou Wenqing, holding his briefcase, looked at Gao Yuan, neither humble nor arrogant, very straightforward. The grades were sent to me by the teachers of various subjects, including the topology regular scores you mentioned. If you have any doubts, you are welcome to report them to the dean, the president, or Academician Ma at any time. Gao Yuan's voice faltered slightly. Indeed, Zhou Wenqing wouldn't dare to do this on his own. After Zhou Wenqing spoke, his gaze turned back to the other students in the class. Any other questions? The classroom was very quiet. Zhou Wenqing smiled. Then that settled. Everyone can enjoy a brief winter break, and we will see each other next year. He left the room. Zhou Wenqing's expression fell. He made a call to President Huang. Bai Lian clipped a few papers together, took a photo, and sent it to Dean Jian and Yan Lu. He stood up, grabbed his coat, and left. Ning Xiao also reached out to shut down his computer. Ding Wenyang was still seated at his spot, staring at the grade of 70 under the topology column on the list for a good while. Chapter 766. 302N0. 9 by Jen. Azure Dragon Bar Incident under 2. Until now, the top 10 on the list have always been terrifyingly talented individuals from various fields. There are currently only 3 people with more than 10 million points. When Bai Jian first appeared on the newcomers list, no one in the major domestic laboratories paid attention, but since the summer vacation, this person suddenly appeared on the overall ranking. They climbed from several thousand to several hundred, and finally to the top 100. In the end, they emerged before everyone, 9th. The points were frightening. Everyone was wondering how far this person could eventually climb in the ranking. A character who suddenly emerged out of nowhere. Every faction was investigating their backstory. But Gao Yi had almost reviewed the information of all researchers and still couldn't find any relevant data on this Bai Jian researcher, delaying his plans to recruit them. This person's capability is definitely not limited to this, the middle-aged man grasped Gao Yi's implication. I will continue to check the overseas laboratories. If they couldn't find anything domestically, they imagined that the person should be in a laboratory abroad. Gao Yi's phone rang. It was Gao Yuan. Afternoon. At Xijing Club. In a private room. Liu Zhang took a phone call, then turned to the girl in front of him, wearing a beige Chong Sam and looking exceptionally gentle, stood up and shook her hand. Okay then, Miss Wan, we'll see each other on the 28th. They were as distant as if the other person was a partner or collaborator. Goodbye. Wen Jixia also stood up and politely shook hands with Liu Zhang. Both from equal social standings, they had only met 3 times but were already bound together. Liu Zhang left the room, his female secretary waiting outside, handing over his suit jacket, then smiled politely at Wen Jixia coming out from behind. Miss Wan. Everyone knew that Wen Jixia was about to become the wife of the elder son of the Yu family. The secretary treated Wen Jixia with considerable politeness. As Liu Zhang stepped away, the female secretary followed. President Liu, Mina is trying her best to contact Wang Xian. But at the moment, the other party only has one endorsement brand, solid foundation paste, and the chances of us securing a deal are not great. The two of them were close to each other. Wen Jixia felt nothing, only waiting for the person to enter the elevator before she leaned somewhat ungracefully against the wall and pressed her phone, ordering, "Bring my shoes up." She rarely wore high heels, and today's were rubbing a bit. When the Wen family driver brought the shoes up, she switched to sneakers and casually picked up a black coat to drape over herself. As she walked, she tapped her phone, sending a message to Bai Lian. Chapter 767. 302N0. 9 by Jian. Azure Dragon Bar Incident under 3. Dean Jian nodded at her and continued speaking to Bai Lian about Old Master Chen. He really appreciates you. Bai Lian pressed the elevator button and hearing this, merely offered a proper smile. Then thank you. Ding. The elevator arrived. Bai Lian got in and politely bid farewell to Dean Jian. As the elevator doors slowly closed, Dean Jian could still see her radiant face. She had changed to a new hairpin today, a light purple jade one, her pair of black eyes like layers of mist, inscrutable. Even when hearing about the Chen family, a family as distinguished as a feast accompanied by the tolling of bells, she remained composed and unconcerned, and Dean Jian practically never saw any other expression on her. He really had no idea what Bai Lian wanted. Once the elevator doors had shut, Lang Shuhe finally dared to speak. Teacher, did Miss Yen Lu come today? She's recording a song, what about it? Dean Jian walked leisurely toward the recording studio, unable to help his old friend with the busy schedule. My friend wants to discuss a few cooperation matters with Miss Yen Lu. Lang Shuhe followed Dean Jian. Does she have any time, teacher? You can ask her when she comes out, Dean Jian replied casually. Lang Shuhe murmured affirmatively, his gaze lingering curiously at the elevator entrance. Wen Jixia had learned to drive during the summer break. She drove her car near Jiangyin, waiting for Bai Lian. After notifying Ming Dongheng, Bai Lian looked for Wen Zixia's car. When she arrived, Wen Jixia was leaning against the car door, dressed in a black coat and wearing a pair of sneakers, looking cool as she lazily stood in the brisk sunshine, scrolling through social media. Damn! Is she finally releasing a new song? Bai Lian happened to overhear this remark. She approached quietly and handed a cup of hot milk tea she had just bought for Wen Jixia. Why have you come to Jiangyin? Wen Jixia, who planned to take Bai Lian out for drinks, sipped the milk tea and got into the driver's seat, heading with Bai Lian to the Azure Dragon Bar. Just to take a look, Bai Lian buckled her seat belt. Wen Jixia nodded, glancing from the corner of her eye at the familiar black car behind them. It was Ming Dongheng's car, trailing from a distance. She withdrew her gaze from the rearview mirror, momentarily forgetting about Jiang Yin. She did ask Bai Lian how she knew Jiang Fulai the other day, but still had no clue about whom the other person was. When Xixia's roots in Jiangjing were shallow, and there was much she didn't understand. The one family had mentioned Su San Shao multiple times, but she had never heard them mention the name Jiang Fulai. Of course, Wen Jixia was not foolish enough to question the old Madame Wan or the butler. She wouldn't reveal too much about Bai Lian's matters. For now, when they go to the bar, they are always followed by a dedicated car. Yet the one family had never assigned a bodyguard to stay close and protect Wen Jixia. Wen Jixia found this somewhat surprising. At this time, the Azure Dragon Bar had just opened. It was the same reserved booth as before. This time Wen Jixia was much calmer than last time. She did not drink much and talked to Bai Lian about her impressive achievements at school. She even mentioned Lu Yuzhang. He's known Ming Zongyao for more than a decade, childhood sweethearts. I've met Miss Ming too, a very gentle and elegant lady, a notable figure in Jiang University's financial circles, very popular among the socialites. This was also one of the reasons why Wen Jixia was not well received in certain circles. But an arranged marriage concerns two families. Lu Yuzhang, who has always prioritized power, cut ties with the Ming family very cleanly. 7 in the evening. A black sedan stopped outside the Azure Dragon Bar. Ming Dongheng stood silently at the entrance, watching the noble figure alight from the driver's seat, not daring to speak. Jiang Fulai was dressed in a minimalist coat, looking up at the bar, his eyes always light, his presence dignified and distinguished even in such a place. The Azure Dragon Bar was never a spot for ordinary consumer spending, frequented by the elite of Jiangjing. The staff were accustomed to power and influence. Yet at the sight of Jiang Fulai, no one dared to step forward to lead the way. Ming Dongheng stepped forward and honestly led the way for Jiang Fulai. In the bar, square lights flickered. Smoke and the scent of alcohol mingled, creating an enveloping haze. The music from several stages in the center was deafening, in what was clearly a chaotic and noisy place. As Jiang Fulai passed by, it was as though a mute button had been pressed. The lighting inside the bar was already dim, but even with his eyes lowered, one could feel an undeniable presence emanating from him. Mr. Xueqi. Far away, the waiter had already gone inside to report to Xueqi. Jiang Fulai's demeanor didn't seem like that of someone who had come to simply wander through a bar. It's fine. Xueqi glanced over, recognized him at once, and waved his hand to let them be. No need to wait on him. The booth. 2 young men were sitting beside Wen Jixia, pouring her drinks. Just as Jiang Fulai arrived, the young man on the left side of Wen Jixia noticed Bai Lian's drink was finished, glanced at Bai Lian, and reached out to pour her another glass. Bai Lian was unlike the other patrons of the bar. Not to mention the clothing and jewelry on both her and Wen Jixia, which were recognizable as bespoke. Just the sheer force of Bai Lian's presence was far beyond any socialite or second-generation rich person they had ever encountered. Thank you, Bai Lian said lazily, picking up the glass. Her slender fingers tapped the glass nonchalantly as she spoke. Just pour for her. She politely declined. Wen Jixia wasn't as drunk today. Just a bit dizzy. She smiled, about to speak, when suddenly she felt the atmosphere around her inexplicably turn cold. Bai Lian also felt it and turned around to see Jiang Fulai, her lazy and beautiful face revealing a slight smile. Why did you come over? Wen Jixia shuddered, suddenly becoming sober. She stood up somewhat reservedly. Jiang Fulai sat down beside Bai Lian with his usual expression, glanced at Wen Jixia, and said calmly, I'm just passing by, don't mind me, continue drinking. Wen Jixia sat down, suddenly feeling a bit hesitant to drink. The 2 young men beside her didn't dare to lift their heads either. In front of the table full of handsome men and beautiful women, especially Bai Lian and Jiang Fulai, even the best-looking patrons of Qinglong Bar seemed pale in comparison. Jiang Fulai slowly rolled up his sleeves and unhurriedly picked up an unopened bottle of liquor from the table, pouring a small glass of brown liquid for Bai Lian. Bai Lian paused for a moment. I've stopped drinking. Jiang Fulai placed the glass down and glanced over it, lowering his gaze. Then it must be because my pouring skills are poor. Bai Lian. The last time they met, Jiang Fulai had been quite gentle with Wen Jixia. It was only now that when Jixia truly felt the oppressive aura of the young Mr. Jiang, she rose to her feet. I have to rush back for a meeting, silly. Let's meet another time. She went to the bar to settle the bill, but was informed that Jiang Fulai had already paid it. Miss Wan, Ming Dongheng appeared like a ghost, courteous and polite. I will escort you back. When Jixia got into Ming Dongheng's car, finally coming back to her senses, she answered a call from the One family butler. Miss, it's 7 o'clock. How come you haven't returned? On the way, when Jixia sat in the back seat, cracked open the window to clear her head. I'll be home soon. Drive slowly, the butler advised upon hearing the sound of the wind, before sharing some gossip with Wen Jixia. The second master is also here, and Ji Wei mentioned she saw Yen Lu at this afternoon's gathering. She is trying to work out a deal with Yen Lu's management agency. Having a brand spokesperson is very important, and clearly, this year in the entertainment circle, no one is hotter than Yen Lu. She's not just a performing artist and singer now, but also the official representative of Xueqi and is highly promoted by the Zhongjing Music Academy. After Blossoms on the Tree became a hit, Yen Lu's status in the industry shot up significantly, thanks to Bai Jian. After all, everyone knows the theme song was written by Bai Jian for the theater's director. One can imagine the director standing. The commercial value of Yen Lu cannot be underestimated in the future. Chapter 768. 303 members joined. Shocking friend circles in all directions. For one Yunshao district is different from the carved beams and painted rafters of Shermen district, the lively and human touch of the university town in Chang'an district, and the low-profile simplicity of Xinjiang district. As an economic center, it has always been luxurious. Neon lights dazzle in splendor. Jiang Fulai stood by a nearby street sign, his gaze lazily falling into the distance whereby Lian was talking with Xueqi. Her unbound hair fluttered in the wind and the skirt she was wearing swayed gently. Her eyes and brows were hazily covered by the roadside lanterns, exuding a unique Chinese charm. Behind her was the cold-colored glimmer of lights. Uniquely blessed. I won't make an appearance, Bai Lian discussed with Xueqi about the end-of-year business alliance event. You and Dr. Lu can host it. I've reviewed Sun Chun's year-end welfare plan. It's very good. The focus is to promote the planting of herbal medicines in Xueqi. Having been open for over a year now, after the acupuncture for myopia, some bloggers began to see initial results. With Xueqi's marketing genius, Xian Kong has formally become the go-to choice for netizens seeking myopia treatment within the country. Xian Kang's popularity naturally led to others following suit. Xian Kong did not work in isolation but welcomed teachers from any pharmacy to learn the acupuncture for myopia technique, a move that earned them a lot of praise. In the first half of the year, the internet was all about Yen Lu and Daong. In the second half, most of the topics revolved around Xian Kong and Bai Lian, and the Xueqi Calligraphy Association also enjoyed some of the attention. Netizens knew that Xian Kong and Xingyi Martial Arts School were from Xueqi, but they were unaware of Bai Lian's connection with Xian Kong. Xueqi was aware that Bai Lian was unlikely to attend the event. In fact, at various conferences, Dr. Lu usually represented Xueqi. Despite having earned his own money since junior high and possessing a mature aura, he was not fully trusted by the bosses and business partners due to his young age. Chairman Liao from the Zhongjing Business Association has been eagerly inviting us to join the association. Xueqi brought up another matter to Bai Lian. He would like to invite you to the end-of-year business alliance banquet. Xian Kang's success in countering old brands like the Luo family and breaking into first-tier cities has garnered the attention of major business alliances. Those in the industry know that Xian Kong must have political connections. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been possible for them to obtain insight into the top-level policy decisions so early on. Xian Kong has already become a target for various business alliances. Chapter 769. 303 joins the club. Shocking friends from all directions. Under Sir she was looking at the new guzheng placed in the middle. When did you buy it? Without turning her head, she knew he had come out. Jiang Fulai knew she didn't like to blow-dry her hair, so he went to the bathroom, fetched the hairdryer, and had her sit on the sofa to help her dry her hair. A couple of days ago, I saw they were about to transport it to the exhibition and had someone intercept it. It was a guzheng that hadn't even made it to the exhibition yet. Bai Lian was lying on the sofa sideways, and by now, she no longer asked Jiang Fulai how much he spent on the zither. She was only thinking about whether Dean Jian knew about the zither and whether she should invite him to see it at home. Midway through the blow-drying, Zhou Wenqing's phone call came through. He said something, but Bai Lian couldn't hear it clearly, so she just tilted her head back. Turn it off first. Jiang Fulai stretched out his hand to turn off the hairdryer. Zhou Wenqing didn't know who she was talking to and felt a slight chill on his skin. His voice tinged with concern. I heard someone approach the president earlier. It was still about that spot. Zhou Wenqing was about to become deputy dean, and most of the movements within the department could reach him. It's nothing. Bai Lian didn't care about the matter at all. It was only after she finished the call that Jiang Fulai asked her what had happened. Bai Lian briefly explained. Yet, young Master Jiang's attention was elsewhere. He turned the hairdryer back on and snickered. 90 points? He usually gives you only 90? Bai Lian. That's quite high. Everyone else got only 20 or 40 points. Jiang Fulai certainly didn't think it was high, and after finishing blow-drying her hair, he specifically went back to the study to grab his phone and sent out a message. Missing these 10 points to come home for the new year. This somewhat subdued smile made none of the Zhongxing executives, who were in a meeting, dare to speak. Outside, Ming Dongheng wouldn't dare to enter room 302 at this time. He was in room 303 helping Jiang He tidy up the Lego on the carpet, waiting for Bai Lian to come out before discussing when Xixia's matter with her. A spokesperson? Bai Lian pondered for a moment. Everyone was busy at the end of the year. Yan Lu was attending various ceremonies and receptions, and she was also preparing to release a new song. Though Ming Dongheng was taking on the responsibility of a head bodyguard, as a member of the Ming family, he understood a bit. These enterprises that are being marginalized are now much less well known than before. They are all looking for new avenues, and Miss Wen's family business probably wants to make a breakthrough in this regard. Chapter 770. 303 joins the club, shocking friends from all directions under 3 but, compared to the person in front of him, he still fell short by quite a bit. It's the merit of Xueqi and Dr. Lu. Bai Lian raised her glass, always reserved in expression and replied with neither civility nor overbearance. Xueqi's marketing strategies have been borrowed by countless others. This kind of three-shop marketing strategy, plus a lawyer in the background whose identity was unknown, made most companies hesitate to make a move. After all, everyone in business knows how terrifying a top legal team can be. Even a top 100 global company like the Luo family rode the wave of this hype. So who else would dare to make a move? After the meal, Bai Lian agreed to join the Jiangjing Commerce Association. Liao Guangshuan personally escorted Bai Lian to the car. Miss Bai, I will deliver your Commerce Association VIP card to you once it's ready. Thank you. The car was still driven by Ming Dongheng. After Bai Lian got into the car, Liao Guangshuan's secretary finally spoke. Miss Bai is really lucky. He was referring to Xueqi and Lu Jiwei underneath Bai Lian. Lucky. Liao Guangshuan glanced at the secretary. To gather several management members of Shenkong together and make them follow orders dutifully, do you think that's just her luck? This kind of governance, some old-timers in the business association might not be able to use as skillfully as Bai Lian's side. The two walked back. Inside the business association, a manager led a group of people out. Seeing Liao Guangshuan, the manager hurried to greet him. President Liao, then continued to introduce. President Liao, these are the outstanding participants of the campus entrepreneurship competition. Our department specifically invited them to come for training at the business association. This is Song Min. Upon hearing that this was the president of the Jiangjing Commerce Association, the group of entrepreneurial university students was very excited, including Song Min and Bai Shaoqi who walked at the front. President Liao had just met Bai Lian, who even in his presence, was elegantly natural and composed. Comparing her with these young people who couldn't conceal their ambition made for a stark contrast. He smiled and offered a few words of encouragement. After he left, the group of students burst into excited chatter. That was President Liao. Bai Shaoqi couldn't contain herself and whispered to Song Min, I wonder if he remembered your name just now. For them, President Liao was a significant figure in the industry. Bai Qiming couldn't sit at the same table with him to dine, even if he tried for another 20 years. The 27th day of the lunar calendar. There was only one day left until when Xixia's engagement. Chapter 771. 303 joins the club, shocking friends from all directions under for Uncle Wen also turned his attention to the grandmother. This is my childhood friend, Bai Lian. Wen Jixia glanced at Wen Jiwei. Wen Jiwei took a closer look at Bai Lian, felt that the name sounded somewhat familiar, but did not give it much thought, as when Jixia grew up in Beijing, a childhood friend would also be from Beijing. Jiang Jing had not heard much of the Bai family. She tilted her head to continue speaking with Lai Chen, not paying attention to Bai Lian. Today, many guests arrived early at the Wen family, and they would be uniformly arranged nearby later. As one of the main figures of the event, Wen Jixia was supposed to host the guests together with the grandmother and Uncle Wen, but in practice, Bai Lian had been standing with her in the living room for half an hour while most of the high-status management personnel were received by the grandmother and Uncle Wen. Most of the younger people were talking to Wen Jiwei and Lai Chen. I heard you concluded a deal with Miss Ming last time? Deal is an overstatement, but you know Ming family has recently collaborated with Zhongxing, right? I just tried to invest a bit of capital, I can't compare with them, Wen Jiwei modestly said. It's my cousin who is really amazing. He recently connected with the manager of Little Grape Private Equity. Little Grape Private Equity, in just 6 months, had become the leading private equity in the Jiangjing area. It seems that each person behind the management team had significant backgrounds. Jiwei, do you know the inside story? Will the people from Jiangjing's business alliance also come tomorrow? The Wen family and Yu family were also members of Jiangjing's business alliance, and it was certain that members would attend the engagement. Yes, said Wen Jiwei. My uncle even invited Chairman Liao, though I don't know if he will grace the event with his presence. There were various receptions at the end of the year, and at such times, it's not easy for them to invite Chairman Liao. A group of people gathered and chatted excitedly. Wen Jixia was used to being marginalized by these people. Occasionally she would join the conversation with Uncle Wen about business, but mostly she turned her head and talked to Bai Lian. She passed Bai Lian a stack of exquisite pastries. They're not as sophisticated as what you're used to eating. My family's chefs are going to be annoyed to death by me. She had discovered last time that Bai Lian liked these delicacies, so the Su family brought her a box. Bai Lian's visit had been in Wen Zixia's preparation plans for a while. Bai Lian sat beside Wen Jixia, stretching out her hand to pick up a plum blossom-shaped crystal pastry. It's delicious. She lowered her eyes and ate 2 pieces methodically. Chapter 772. 304 Jixia. This is Chairman Liao under one in the past year. Quite a few people have added Bai Lian. Among the people the original owner added, aside from Ji Mulan, she basically didn't delete anyone. Later on, she added a group of people from Xiangqing, followed by the head of the institution and others, and after coming to Jiangjing, she added Gao Shu, Gao Yan, and her classmates from Jiang University. Her WeChat moments gathered a constellation of talent. But basically, everyone who was added later knew that Miss Bai didn't like to go online, spending her days either reading books or visiting the Book Association Martial Arts Hall, and in her spare time, she looked after cabbages or played Go with Jiang He. This was the first time she posted on her moments. Seeing her post on moments for the first time, most people were quite surprised to click and take a look. Especially Class 15 who had added Bai Lian for over a year, and now seeing her post on moments, directly took a screenshot and sent it to the class group. Wang Qi, screenshot. Wang Qi. It's amazing, Sister Lian actually knows about this feature in moments. Zhang Xiai's replied to Bei, at Bai Lian. Wang Qi has recalled a message. They were just joining in the fun, but some people seriously looked at the picture. The invitation on the picture had the time and place clearly written. On the other side, Chairman Liao was at the Hot Spring Villa, accompanying Dean Feng and hosting professors from the finance department as well as several politicians. Does Xian Kong have ties with her? Dean Feng's expression betrayed his surprise. As the dean of the finance department, Dean Feng's network was quite formidable. The solid foundation paste from behind Xian Kong had overpoweringly potent effects. He knew better than anyone where it was used, exclusive to the Special Forces medical supplies, signed under an official contract. In fact, one only needed to look at the packaging of solid foundation paste to know. Many drug names were not disclosed, belonging to second-level confidential prescriptions. This was also one of the reasons why the Luo family couldn't beat Xian Kong. The product now being sold to the public was diluted by several times. Backed by official support. Prescription confidentiality. Therefore, Dean Feng suggested that Liao Guangshuan personally invite Xian Kong, this yet-to-be-listed company, to join the Jiangjing Business Alliance. The Luo family's cooperation with our country, and the domestic leading traditional Chinese medicine industry did indeed need a change. Now it seemed that Xueqi was indeed thriving, offering a new path for traditional Chinese medicine in the country. This was because the nearsightedness acupuncture treatment, after being verified by netizens over 2 to 3 months, really showed remarkable effects, leading more and more people to believe in traditional Chinese medicine. I didn't expect it either, said Liao Guangshuan, sitting on the Kong bed, picking up the hot teapot in the middle and pouring tea for Dean Feng. She doesn't understand the industry, but she speaks with a commanding presence, never appearing in public, which is odd. Xueqi had been hot for so long, yet its public managers were merely 2 doctors, one surnamed Lu, the other He. If netizens knew who was behind Xueqi, Bai Lian, with her influence in Jiang University, and her popularity online, Xueqi's fame would surge yet again. After all, she is from the Mu family, Dean Feng, who knew about a former incident involving the Mu family, said. The Mu family patriarch was also a towering figure when he was young, although he wasn't as conspicuous then. Xueqi is just icing on the cake for her. Her main arena isn't the business world. According to old Huang, this Miss Bai is no simple character. He looked serious. The finance and physics departments have been close due to Zhang Fulai and Zhang Shijue, often holding joint events. Dean Feng and Dean Huang were old friends, having dined together just the other day. He had overheard Dean Huang slip and call Bai Lian junior sister. Who is Dean Huang's teacher? If he called Bai Lian junior sister, that meant she was extraordinary, the disciple of the sect leader of the #1 academic school in the country, with the previous 3 senior brothers all being industry titans. Sitting aside, Liao Guangshuan once again heard shocking insider information. He began to think about his attitude toward Bai Lian during their previous meetings. When he went back to his room, he inadvertently saw Bai Lian's Moments post, with a long list of likes from mutual friends below. Liao Guangshuan fixed his gaze on it for a moment. Su En, Dean Huang, the 3rd young master Su. A plethora of people's likes. He quickly clicked like too, then clicked on the picture to take a closer look. He didn't remember the invitation, but he knew of the Wen and Yu families, both being business alliance members, and called his assistant to inquire if they had received an invitation. Learning that they had, he began to consider. At the end of the year, he was to entertain several leaders with Dean Feng. Now, Liao Guangshuan couldn't make up his mind and went to ask Dean Feng. Go ahead, said Dean Feng after some thought, offering his advice. It wasn't easy for old Huang to find her last time, and your chances of seeing her afterward might not be many. He might as well take this opportunity, as it would be difficult to see her again in the future. At the Wen family, Bai Lian had been in the greenhouse since the afternoon, opening her laptop to work on data. Chapter 773, 304 Jixia. This is Chairman Liao_2. Her computer was filled with charts of reds and greens. Both glanced at each other's computer screens, and good, neither knew what the other was up to, so they silently turned their gazes back to their own tasks. The Wen family butler came over a few times to replace their tea with warm water, and he could understand a bit of what was on Wenxia's computer. It was a K-line chart. Bai Lian's had all sorts of charts in a pile of spreadsheets, and sometimes dynamic models would pop up. No idea what she was doing. Is this what young people are into these days? The butler, puzzled, returned to the living room to assist the old lady with hosting guests. After she finished a chart, Bai Lian slightly raised her hand and lazily picked up the teacup beside her. While chatting with Wen Jixia, it seemed casual. School just started, you seemed quite reluctant about the engagement when you met me? She had also looked into the Wen and Yu families. All it would take was a word from Wen Jixia, and she could make both the Wen and Yu families take a step back, but Wen Jixia did not bring it up again. Marrying anyone is still marriage. With no one in the flower room, Wen Jixia's ambition was clear. She leaned back in her chair, her hand resting on the armrest. The Yu family is the best blade, and both Liu Zhang and I know each other's purpose. The Yu family valued her as an individual, and she valued the Yu family's power. Both were very clear-headed. Bai Lian looked into Wen Jixia's eyes and nodded slightly. Good. That evening, Bai Lian stayed next to Wen Jixia's room. After her bath, she continued with the afternoon's work and then spent an hour discussing details with Ning Xiao via voice call. After the voice call, she closed the design software and returned to her WeChat page, only to see that Zhang Fulai had sent her a link half an hour ago, which was then interrupted. She powered off the computer and then turned on her phone. On her phone, She revisited the same interrupted link and redialed it. I was just comparing data with Ning Xiao. As soon as the video call connected, Bai Lian found a spot to place her phone, then reached out to tidy up the computer and notebook on the desk, putting them into the canvas bag next to her, while she explained to Zhang Fulai. On the other end, Zhang Fulai was in room 103, deftly playing with a black ghost stone. He was too lazy to continue playing chess with Zhang He opposite him, leisurely placing the stone to block the opponent's path and then taking his phone out to the glass room. Zhang He on the other side. In the video, Bai Lian wore the home clothes provided by the One family, a silk long-sleeve shirt, her hair still half wet. Her long hair hung loosely in front of her chest. Chapter 774, 304 Jixia. This is Chairman Liao under 31 Jixia. How do you have his WeChat? Added in Shangcheng. They were filming there before. Do you want me to send it to you later? Ah, Wen Jixia was startled for a moment. No need, I just like the characters he and Yen Lu play, especially Yen Lu. It was only after Wen Jixia left that Bai Lian closed the door and quietly picked up her phone. On the other side of the phone, Zhang Fulai was still standing in the courtyard with a glass roof, his hand nonchalantly in his pocket, quietly waiting for them to finish. His eyelashes were lowered, his voice quite indifferent. The bar sister from that day? Since that time, Wen Zixia's only image in Zhang Fulai's mind was associated with the bar. Zhang Fulai didn't comment much about the bar, but as for Wen Jixia finding two handsome men to pour drinks, Mr. Zhang had some reservations. It was rare for him to be impolite. From Miss Wen to bar sister. Bai Lian. The following day, Wen Jixia got engaged. Early in the morning, the stylist was preparing Wen Zixia's gown. Wen Jixia wore a gradient mermaid dress with pearl straps. The tail was embellished with sparkling diamonds. As the two families were getting engaged, Bai Lian had not seen Liu Zhang either. In the morning, in a manner not far from the One family's, the large banquet hall was laid with grey carpets, and the stage in the center was covered with fresh flowers. Servers holding trays of drinks shuttled under luxurious crystal lights. When Bai Lian and Wen Jixia arrived, there were already quite a few people gathered in groups, murmuring over glasses of wine. There were also pairs and trios greeting each other with drinks in hand. In such an event, some people wished to come but didn't receive an invitation, while others couldn't be bothered to attend despite having one. Wen Jixia, in her pearl-studded fishtail dress and a crystal tiara, wore the bright and dazzling style of a princess. Bai Lian was dressed in a simple long white gown today, a subdued color. It wasn't a show-stealing ensemble, but her unique classical temperament did not pale next to Wen Jixia. It was not without reason that the Yu family was interested in Wen Jixia. Bai Lian, by Wen Zixia's side, soon caught the attention of many. Who is that? Bai Lai Chen's side, a returning student classmate holding a glass of wine set eyes on Bai Lian. Lai Chen had already learned of Bai Lian's identity from the One family, and casually said, according to Ji Wei, she's Wen Zixia's classmate in Beijing. She came here especially for Wen Zixia's engagement party. Having come this far for Wen Zixia's engagement, he felt he had grasped Bai Lian's intentions. A classmate from Beijing? Lai Chen's classmate looked in Bai Lian's direction with a keen interest. Then there's no need for special greetings.